Hello everyone, welcome to day 3 of Amazon Seller Week. Today we have 5 more sessions lined up for you that will cover the latest advertising best practices, the new way to handle Amazon appeals, as well as strategies for launching new products and scaling your brand beyond Amazon. But coming up first, if there's one thing we know about Amazon advertising, it's that what worked yesterday might not be working today. Amazon is constantly evolving, and the brands that stay ahead are the ones who adapt first. So what's coming this year, and how can you prepare now to take advantage of the biggest opportunities? Well, that's exactly what Jeffrey Cohen, the tech evangelist at Amazon Ads, is here to reveal. He's joining Jay Lovelace, the CEO of Jungle Scout, for an exclusive look at the future of Amazon advertising. Together, they're exploring emerging ad platforms, new targeting capabilities, and the biggest opportunities for brands looking to gain a competitive edge in 2025. So now, joining in from Chicago, Illinois, please welcome Jeff Cohen and Jay Lovelace.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Jay Lovelace. I'm the CEO of Jungle Scout, and I'm delighted today to be here with Jeff Cohen from Amazon. And I couldn't be more excited to be with Jeff to talk a bit about Amazon and some of the transformative things that have happened.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Great.
I've been a fan and a friend of Jungle Scout for a number of years, so always happy to be on stage and share with you guys and share with your audience. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're glad you were able to carve the time out for us, and we appreciate the partnership over the years. Let's start with last year, 2024. It was a transformative year for Amazon Ads overall. You had numerous updates, new tools that rolled out. And maybe you could elaborate a bit about that and what you see as the future of that as we move forward here.
Yeah, one of the things I always like to say is we need to look at we need to take a second and pause and look backwards to understand how far we've come, right?
Okay.
So if you look at where we were in the beginning of 2024, Prime Video didn't have ads. Right. So if we just talk about the transformative years within Amazon advertising, it all started with us unlocking the audience of Prime Video to have advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And that became a rather, large endeavor for Amazon across the board, because Amazon and Prime Video are not just in the US, but they've got global reach.
Sure.
And so as we've rolled out advertising across different regions throughout 2024, we've also rolled out additional programming within Prime Video. And so Amazon has always kind of been known and understood for the advertising tools and tech and metrics and the ability to close the loop in the measurement of advertising. But we really demonstrated our ability to step into the content side of the game by taking all the great things that Prime Video is doing, inserting ads into those placements, and then measuring the success for advertisers, which opened up advertising even more for advertisers of all size.
Okay.
If you look at some of the other transformative things that happened in 2024, we also democratized what we called streaming television, the ability to use self-service advertising to place video ads in streaming TV, whether that be Fire TV or any of the other Amazon properties. This is allowing for advertisers of any size to be able to reach audiences at scale and measure the results. Those are really exciting, transformative changes that have been kind of coming along as the industry has evolved. Some of the other big changes that I think were really exciting for sellers of all sizes was towards the end of 2024, we unlocked Amazon Marketing Cloud for all advertisers. So up until that announcement was made in, I think, November,
Yes.
You needed to be using the Amazon DSP to get the insights from Amazon Marketing Cloud. Now anyone who's using sponsored ads can get the insights from Amazon Marketing Cloud, can be able to identify new audiences and then use that audience data to further target their sponsored product ads. These are just some of the things. We could also go into the big updates we've made on creative.
Right.
And Amazon really has taken this mantra that we want to make advertising work for advertisers of all size.
Yes.
Advertisers who sell on Amazon and advertisers who do not sell on Amazon. We want to be able to provide audiences at scale so that you can create new discoverability for your brand. And then maybe most importantly, we want to be able to measure the success of that so that the advertiser and the brand have an understanding of what's working, what's not, and where they can be and how they can be more efficient and effective with their advertising dollars.
That's really great. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And really exciting because there are things, it's one of the things we talked about prior to this is just the lens of the customer and making sure that we're overachieving, or that Amazon is really looking through the lens of the customer to make sure they're reaching and exceeding their goals. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon always talks about being customer obsessed.
Yes.
And from the outside, before I joined Amazon, I had always heard about these things. I'd always heard people on stage talk about it. As a customer of the technology, I thought I understood it. When you get to Amazon and you really see what customer obsession is and how it works, it's in every meeting. It's discussed in every data point that we have. Everything is done very deliberately to understand the impact on the end user, the customer, because at the end of the day, we want people to engage with our products, whether they be Prime Video shows or whether they be the shopping engine or any of the other ways that you would interact with Amazon on a daily basis, in a way that's meaningful to you as a customer.
Got it.
And that creates value for you as a customer. And when we do that, we also create value for our advertisers and for our brands. And it becomes really a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, the win-win-win strategy, or the ecosystem play, is really critical. Maybe you could just hit on Marketing Cloud a bit, as it seems like it's one of the newest updates. Any early signals that you'd want to share, or things that you've noticed?
Yeah, so Amazon Marketing Cloud, you may hear it referred to a lot as just AMC. It's a privacy-safe clean room that allows you to aggregate the information within your within all of your different data signals that are coming to understand how your customers are behaving. So which ads are they interacting with and which patterns. And so you have all pseudonymized data, meaning that you don't have any actual customer data within there, but you can see the patterns of what's happening.
All right.
And that starts to unlock the customer funnel and what ads are impacting the customer along the way. And it's also allowing you to get aggregated demographic and other signals, which we call audience signals, that you can then use to further enhance your advertising. So one of the big features that was released at Unbox this year was the ability to boost your sponsored product ads based on AMC signals. Just to give an example, like let's say there's a signal with AMC around subscribe and save. You have a product that sells repeatedly and you see a signal that is leading to more subscribe and save customers. You can use that signal to boost your sponsored product ads so that when people are searching within that campaign or that keyword, and it has the propensity to drive that action, you're willing to pay more for that placement. And so before we had placement bid modifiers around top of search and rest of search and locations like that, now we can actually bring in some of the signals from AMC. And we're seeing some really great results from our advertisers who started testing this in Q4.
That's great. Good. Thank you for sharing that. How can brands begin building custom audience segments, and what best practices should they follow to target these audiences effectively?
Yeah, let's just kind of break it down. Like if you're only selling on Amazon, then you can use AMC to identify audience and audience segments and signals that you can then boost through the bid boosting functionality that I just talked about. If you also have a D2C website, you can then bring in first party data and what's happening on your site in a privacy safe way through our clean room that allows you to identify what are the signals that are happening on your site that you could then double down onto within your advertising campaigns on Amazon. As you get more sophisticated as a brand, and you then can start to access third-party signals that will help you to enrich all those data signals together to understand even more of what your audience is doing and how you can impact that. Some of this can get really confusing for some brands, depending on where you are within your sophistication and level. Therefore, that's why I think like you want to just, if you're getting started, you want to understand the basics, right? What does your customer funnel look like? What does your path to purchase look like? What is the impact that your sponsored product ads have across that funnel? And what is the impact that maybe your DSP ads have across that funnel. And what some of our advertisers have found was that when they invest in DSP, so more upper funnel, full funnel type of ad placements, it actually makes their sponsored product ads more effective.
I bet.
And so as you start to understand what those signals look like and how and what metrics they're impacting, it allows you to figure out where you may want to shift your ad dollars. Now, one of the other things that I think is a part of the evolution that a lot of sellers and brands are going through is at the data points that you're looking at to measure success. So if we go back, 3-4 years ago, we were very heavily focused on ACost and tacos and really understanding, how those drove performance advertising. When you start to look at a tool like AMC and you start to kind of get into more mid and upper funnel type of advertising campaigns,
Right.
you want to start looking at some of the signals that will indicate that it's driving that conversion that you want. And so you may be looking for something like a new to brand metric.
Okay.
So how many ads are you running that are bringing new people in who haven't bought from your brand before? You may want to start looking at a metric such as subscribe and save, right? Because it's a different action that you're driving. The other thing that you may want to look at within AMC is what are your hero products that are then leading to other purchases within your catalog. And so AMC really becomes this plethora of data signals that you can use that allows you to start answering these more sophisticated questions that allow you to have a more sophisticated advertising campaign.
You keep using the word sophisticated, which is really that. I mean, when you think about what I would call the entanglement of a marketing strategy and now having direct line of sight, being able to identify the direct correlations that occur across the different vehicles.
Or even indirect correlations, right? And I think that's what brands are discovering. I thought my product was being used by this demographic in this way, but what I'm finding is that it's being used by this demographic in this way, and therefore I want to create a campaign that's actually trying to attract these type of shoppers. And maybe it could be something as simple as the wife is buying the product for the husband.
Okay.
But your target market that you thought for your product was always the husband.
Yes.
And so you may have been, creating campaigns that were really targeted towards a male audience, but maybe you need to alter your images and you need to alter some of your keywords based on it really being a female buyer who's buying it for their significant other.
What do you anticipate with AMC over the next, call it 6 to 12 months into 25?
Yeah, so AMC actually started out with a bang in 2025, right? So we announced in early January that the look back window for Amazon Marketing Cloud is being expanded to 5 years from 13 months. That's currently in beta and will be, available through the first half or rolling out through the first half of 2025. We also released a no code SQL generator.
Okay.
So within AMC, you have to be able to prompt it using SQL code to get back the results, the aggregated results that you're looking for. Using, we'll call it ChatGPT-esque type of functionality.
Nice.
You can now speak to it in natural language and it will write that SQL code for you, giving you the code that you need to create the outputs.
That's fantastic.
I'm expecting that AMC is going to have a lot more forward functionality like that as we move forward, basically meaning that we're going to make it easier to use. We're going to continue to enhance the signals that are available. And we're going to, continue to bring it back in a way that is meaningful for advertisers to measure the results. So that was just in January.
Right.
So I think it's like, buckle up and let's have fun.
Good. All right. Great answer. I love it. All right. So let's maybe move into the consumer a bit. Are there any notable shifts that you've seen in consumer behavior on Amazon that our advertisers should be aware of?
Yeah, I think the one that I've been most surprised about is the shift of users with streaming television.
Okay.
We've seen this probably towards the end of 2024. If you've been following Amazon, you've probably seen the success with Thursday Night Football. But what we saw in 2024 was that the growth of streaming and the audience of streaming really overtook the size of linear TV. Now, one of the things that I find interesting about this data point is that if you look at the total audience between linear TV and streaming TV and you stack them on top of each other, it's a larger audience than ever existed on linear TV.
Overall. in general.
Overall.
Got it. Okay.
So the beauty of this is that streaming TV is not just taking people from linear TV, it's actually bringing more people.
Incrementality.
Right.
Interesting.
I read an article today about Beast Games, one of
Yeah.
the new hits on Prime Video. And what it was talking about, and I think this is really indicative of this shift that we're talking about, is that, Mr. Beast, if you don't follow him, is a YouTube sensation. He's got over 300 million followers.
Yep.
But it was primarily skewed to a younger audience. When they brought him into Prime Video for the Beast Games, where they're giving away a $5 million prize,
Right.
what they found
Beast
was
specific
that
or beast specific?
yes, what they found was that the show has actually become multi-generational,
Okay.
meaning that the younger audience who liked Beast Games or likes Mr. Beast on YouTube
Yes.
isn't just watching it on Prime Video. They're watching it with their parents and with their siblings.
Is that
And
right?
so it's bringing that larger audience, and it's now the most streamed unscripted show on Prime Video. And I think that's indicative of what we're seeing across the board with streaming television, is that it is bringing an incremental audience who wasn't watching it before. We saw the same thing with Prime Video and Thursday Night Football.
Sure.
And that it's becoming a larger audience in the grand scheme of how people are just consuming content.
I see.
And I know it from my own kids who are teenagers.
Right.
And it is a fairly large, paradigm shift from how the consumer used to absorb this content. I think it'll continue to grow in 2025. And I think that advertisers who are finding ways to engage with streaming television and audiences within streaming television are getting a first mover advantage
Mhm.
and are able to capture incremental audiences, through the testing of that. I think the other thing that's probably a big paradigm shift is what's happening with sports. I alluded to that with Thursday Night Football.
Right.
Amazon in 2025 is going to be rolling out NASCAR.
Yep.
They're going to be rolling out expanded WNBA, which they launched last year. They're going to be launching NBA in the fall. And we launched National Women's Soccer League at the end of 2024. And so that's just in the US.
Yes.
When you start to go global, you have to understand that Amazon Live Sports has properties in each of the individual regions that exist. And so if you go over to Europe, they're covering Wimbledon, right? They're covering Formula One.
Mhm.
And so each of the regions are very region specific to the type of content that they're providing. And that creates opportunities for global brands who want to engage with those audiences in those particular regions.
For sure. That's great. How can advertisers better use Amazon ads to tell a story, a brand story? We'll say historically, they've been focused on competitive threats or pricing. How do you tell a story today in this new era of advertising on Amazon?
Yeah, I always start with any good story starts with a good product,
Yes.
right? And consumers want to understand what your product is, what your brand is about, and what they're going to get when they receive your product. And so your brand is everything from your photos and how you tell that story, to your A+ content, to your brand store, to the social media content that you produce, to the packaging and the way that you bring that product to life when it lands and they open the box.
Yes.
Right. I was with a parent the other day and they're like, I wish I could get more frustration-free packaging. Right. So what are the things you can do to connect with your audience that matches what your brand is trying to do? Amazon has a lot of different ways to tell those stories.
Okay.
And a lot of technology that we've used to make that storytelling better. I think one of the best tools that Amazon has is the Amazon Brand Store. It's free.
Yep.
I always like to say it's free. And it's one that has significantly evolved over the last few years. It's a great advertising tool because what happens is that when somebody is on your product detail page and they're trying to understand your product, if they click on your brand name, they end up in your brand store. There are also brand ads that you can run where you can land them into your brand store. Well, once they're in your brand store, this is your personal website within Amazon. And if you're just using that space to sell product, you're not taking full advantage of the consumer and their time. So let me give like an anecdote that I think really explains this.
That's great.
My daughter bought a sweatshirt.
Okay.
She, on Amazon, of course. She came downstairs and I said, wow, I love that sweatshirt. And she's like, thanks, you bought it for me. And I go, well, what brand is it? Like, we should get you more. It looks great on you. It fits you very well.
Yes.
And she's like, I don't know what brand it is. And I said, great, come here. So I looked at the back, looked at the tag, found the brand, went to Amazon, did a search for the brand store, landed on the site. I knew that she liked the oversized sweatshirt.
Mhm.
They had a drop down that said oversized sweatshirts.
Okay.
We went to that page. She picked 2 more. And I said, oh, look, they have sweatpants. And she's like, well, I like the sweatshirts, so maybe I'll like the sweatpants.
For sure.
So she ended up buying a pair of the sweatpants as well. So the one sweatshirt purchase turned into a 4-item purchase subsequently because we were able to discover more of the products from this brand. They had already kind of explained to us their value through the product that we had, but then the store helped us discover more products that they have. And I personally use the store a lot. I know I'm an Amazon power user,
Of course.
but what we find in our data is that when shoppers visit the store, they're more likely to buy more products from the brand. And so some of the tips that I offer, one is update your store, right? Update your store for seasonality, update your store for tentpole events. Also show the complementary products, right? Like show me where I may have liked something and I want to try something else.
Right.
The other one that I suggest to people is that if you have a social media presence outside of Amazon, bring that into the site. I've seen as seen on, for instance, where you have an as seen on and you have some like different snapshots from the social media where people can see the social influence that brand or that product has that may give me some inspiration, right? And think about it in that way, right? A store should be providing it's your merchandising. It should be some inspiration. It should be some motivation, and it should be telling that brand story. And so if you have a very simple product, and then you want to tell the story of what is your product? Why should I buy it? What are you doing that's different than everybody else? And that's a great way to just kind of move people along that shopping journey,
right?
And to help them find new things or to help them move to purchase.
Words that get thrown around a lot is that whole brand experience or the engagement. But really, if I'm going to the brand store as a customer, my engagement is heightened.
Yes.
And so therein lies that opportunity to make sure that you're fulfilling on that engagement as the brand owner. So, why don't brands capitalize on the brand store?
I think the easiest way to answer that is that there are so many different levers. I feel like everything you can do within Amazon is a lever, right? And you need to be able to understand which levers have different impacts on your business. And so if you have used the store before, but you haven't touched it in a while, it could be an internal resource allocation, it could be a budget allocation, or it could just be the fact that you didn't understand what impact that has. Store data is now available within AMC, so you can start to see what type of impact the store has. That's one way to maybe figure out how to make or how much to make within that investment. But I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of functionality within Amazon that brands have, I'll say, put in the set or forget mode.
Right.
And it's difficult because all of the products at Amazon are evolving, right? Very few products come out at Amazon and don't get updates.
Yes.
And so as brand owners, we get really excited when we hear of new things and we go out and we test them, but we maybe don't come back and retest them after a period of time. And so I think that part of the test and learn mentality that brands need to have is a mentality where they're also going back to things that they've done before to see what types of tweaks and changes need to be made. It's not just brand stores. There's other functionality as well. Like, how old is your video? Right? Did you make one video 3 years ago, or are you constantly updating, videos based on seasonality or based on your product updates or based on the feedback that you're getting from your customers and reviews?
Right. Okay. Well, let's continue on. You'd mentioned this earlier. AI is front and center in the advertising community. How are you seeing advertisers using AI-driven tools on Amazon specifically? And is there anything that can help to update or refine campaigns that go along with that?
Here's what I tell my kids.
Okay.
Not that I want to lecture anybody, right? AI is going to be part of our lives
For sure.
for the rest of our lives. And so we either have the choice to embrace it and figure out how to use it, or we can try to fight it, but eventually you'll come around to having to embrace it. In the similar vein, when we first had cell phones, and I'll date myself by saying that my phone was installed in my car.
Oh yeah, I remember well.
Right. And we didn't really know what a phone was for or how a phone was going to be used. And it's definitely not being used today the way that we used it back in we'll call it the 90s.
Agreed.
So there's going to be a lot of evolutions and revolutions that occur within Gen AI. So where can it impact us today? There's a lot of time efficiency that can be gained. So there's a lot of functionality around image generation that can help you to add live motion to your images, resize your images, create new images, add holiday themes to your images. And those are all things that can be done today using the AI tools that are free at Amazon. We've also expanded that to be able to create audio ads. So you can just give it an ASIN and it will write a whole script. It will produce the script and it will create the audio ad for you if you wanted to test something around like Alexa or some type of audio ad. And we're rolling out the functionality around video. And video works in kind of two forms. One is the ability to give an ASIN, you have no video, and it creates the content for you. And then also what I'll say is cut downs. So the ability to give your created content into our studio, and our studio will resize it for the DSP ads or cut it down to the size and dimensions that are needed to be on Amazon. And so the suite of AI products around our creative studio is really helping advertisers save a bunch of time, expand their creative library, and really do things that I think were costly and time consuming before. I think that some of the other advancements that we're seeing within AI are starting to come out by our partners, right? And our partners who are able to take a lot of the data signals that we have and make them more readily available. So a simple example is what I explained with the no-code SQL generation for AMC, right? That's using Gen AI. At its core, Amazon has been an AI company since we started, right? And I think a lot of us, I think Jungle Scout, Cobalt as well.
Yes.
And I think that where we're getting, I think both of our companies feel this way, is that we're able to process more information, which means we're able to get more insights and we're able to do more predictive modeling. And that's allowing Amazon to create things like the technology that we announced at Unbox called multi-touch attribution, right? So how do you run these large language testing models to understand the impact that one ad has over another and add the attribution that's necessary? And so I think we're all being kind of impacted by AI in many different ways across the whole Amazon, plethora of products that we have. And again, like similar to what we were talking about with ad products, I think that, for a brand, it's a question of how do you work on things that move you forward and don't become a distraction.
Yes.
And so it's like, what is your biggest hurdle today? And can AI, Gen AI, help you reduce that hurdle?
Yep.
This is something I usually say at the end of a presentation like this, which is like, we covered a lot and we're going to cover a lot within this time period. But like, what are the 2 or 3 things that you can do today that are going to drive an action for your brand? Because everybody who's out there listening is at a different stage with their business and with their products and with their careers. And so, it's a matter of exploring to kind of see what's out there and what can help you, and then testing. And everything you do has to be in a test mentality. I have been using Gen AI myself almost on a daily basis.
Right.
And it took me several months to get good at writing prompts and getting the type of results that I want. I'm now training an AI model to understand me and my thinking and the way that I write and the way that I interpret, so that it can give me an answer that's more specific to what I want as opposed to it giving me a generic answer.
Mhm.
That's a more sophisticated level of using it. And I think that you can get there if that's where you want to go.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, I think there's a lot of efficiencies
Yep.
that brands can gain through AI that will allow them to focus their time and energy in other places.
Yeah, that's the critical word, efficiencies. All right, maybe we could talk a bit about the introduction of Rufus.
Yep.
How do you see Rufus influencing advertising strategies, on Amazon? And are there specific ways brands can tailor their campaigns to make it more compatible with Rufus?
Yeah, so for people that are not aware, Rufus is
Please.
Amazon's shopping AI. It's on both the app and on the desktop at this point. I think my simple answer is you should never design an advertising campaign or even a organic campaign to try to optimize to an algorithm.
Okay.
And the reason why is that those algorithms constantly change. I do not know much about the Rufus algorithm, similar to the A9 algorithm.
Mhm.
It's not something that's widely shared within Amazon, so I don't have any like secret keys to how to be able to do this. I think the answer really comes back to fundamentals. I'm still surprised at how many brands that I engage with who do not have their catalog listing reports complete. There's a lot of attributes that you can provide to Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Those attributes can cover everything from, is your product right-handed or left-handed?
Right.
Does it require batteries? What color is it? And if you think about all of those attributes, those are pieces that are being fed into the large language model that will ultimately drive the results for what somebody's searching for. Reviews are critical to that, but as brands, we don't have as much impact on those reviews. But all of those things become those building blocks that train the model. And so the first thing I would do if I'm a brand is I would go in, I would look at my catalog listing report, and I would ensure that I have as many attributes completed as possible.
As possible, right?
Size, shape, color, right? I don't even know, because every category is different, how many attributes are that you can provide. But I'm always surprised at how many brands are still not looking at that report,
Right.
and are still not completing those attributes. I think the other thing is that, there is Amazon has a website. It's a science-based website where you can read more about the patents behind Rufus if you want to learn more about it. I don't know that you'll, I think there's some of us that are kind of geeky and love that. I don't know that you'll gain any, real insight into like that magic bullet of how to change an advertising campaign. I think at the end of the day, Amazon is a customer-obsessed company. People are coming to Amazon and they're shopping. They use search terms to identify what they're looking for, and Amazon wants to match a search term with a keyword that demonstrates a product that will make the consumer happy, right? And I know that's like the basic fundamentals of how Amazon has worked since I started teaching sponsored ads in like 2015. But I don't know that changes much with Rufus and how you should go about business. Right now, there is no functionality to have ads specifically for Rufus. There's no way to do bid boosting for Rufus. None of that exists. So from an advertising perspective, you just need to stay with your core basics and your understanding and having, good, efficient campaigns. Because again, like that's a signal back to Amazon that when these ads are shown and these products are bought, that the customer is happy, right? And that's ultimately the signals that you want to be demonstrating.
Made me think of something as you brought it up, an area that I wanted to hit on. Let's talk a bit about leveraging reviews. So how can Amazon ads and reviews work together to enhance a brand's visibility?
Yeah, so I mean, reviews are critical and important. The Amazon Vine program is a great way if you don't have any reviews to kind of get your first reviews going. I still recommend that as something to be thinking about. The best way that brands can use reviews is to understand the sentiment of the reviews for both them and their competitors, and use that knowledge to update their products.
Love it.
Update their listings, update their product detail pages, update their images. That's what's going to give you that insight that when somebody's searching for your product or your competitor's product, what they're looking for. Again, like we all want more reviews. I know everybody out there wants more reviews, but the sentiment analysis from reviews is helpful of not just your reviews and what you have, but also your competitors.
Yes. There's a theme that I'm seeing, and it's constant and ongoing. Whether it's reviews, whether it's the brand store, a lot of the things as a brand owner, I need to make sure that I'm constantly ahead or peeking around the corner to ensure that I'm updating on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like shopping in a physical store,
Yes.
right? And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of how consumers shop. If you buy the same cereal
Mhm.
and then you walk down the cereal aisle and they change the box, you pause
Yes.
for a second before you buy that cereal. Now, if it has a big label on it that says new look, same product, you go, oh, cool, they
Yeah.
updated the branding,
Yeah.
right? But if all of a sudden you were shopping for a cereal and they changed the flavor,
Yep.
then you see the branding and you know it's your product, but you'd be looking for that banner that says new flavor,
Uh-huh.
right? Or new great taste or something like that. And so that's the experience that you want to bring online
Mhm.
with your product. Your product needs to be evolving. It's not possible to have created a product a couple years ago and just continue to remake that product without making any feature enhancements on
Mhm.
that product over time. That's where I think we get into a lull, but good products and good brands that are developing, brands that have staying power
Yes.
are constantly evolving their product. They're taking that feedback that they get from their consumers. They're making things better. They're changing the quantities. They're changing the size. They're
Yep.
changing the flavors. They're changing the colors. And they're using all of those signals to understand what their consumer wants and to be bringing new stuff out.
Right. The research behind it too, to gain all of these signals are great entrance into what should be happening. It's funny. I was chuckling when you said that because although we buy most of things on Amazon, I was in Whole Foods the other day looking for some crackers that we typically purchase.
Yep.
They had radically changed the packaging, the color, the font, everything. And I probably walked by the box 5 times
Right.
till I actually stood on, put on my glasses and looked at the package and said, oh, this is the same product.
Right.
And so it's funny when those transitions happen and you realize that that brand had put a lot of time and research and development into that decision. But I would have missed it if I wasn't patient enough to dig
Yeah,
in
and
further.
so like if you don't have a if you have a repeatable product, those things become hypercritical
Right.
and important. If you don't have a repeatable product, it's still a matter of how does it work today? If it's a product that's like cell phone based, like is it going to work for the newest version of the cell phones that I have,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Everything is evolving over time. Is it
Mhm.
more eco-friendly? Those are the things you want to be bringing forward to
Right.
your customer, that's just showing them that, yeah, maybe there's a bad review, right? Maybe somebody complained about something in the past, but you've addressed that now
For sure.
moving forward. Easier to assemble,
Mhm.
frustration-free packaging, whatever it is
Yeah.
that's addressing. I always like to say, like, there's no such thing as a bad review.
Right.
You might not like the honesty that somebody gave you, but there should be some kind of learning that you can gain from that review that's going to help you in the next time you make that product.
Well, and the consumer is much more conscious and sophisticated as we've described.
Yeah.
And so customers today are much more educated around things like sustainability or good for the environment.
Yep.
And so making those things front and center have to be critical
They do.
in the strategy behind the brand story.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about marketplace expansion.
Yep.
What trends are you seeing in how advertisers are targeting international audiences?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would tell you is, what works in one region may not work in another.
Mhm.
That's probably the biggest feedback that I've seen in working with, cross-border brands that are selling across multiple regions. You really do need specific campaigns for the regions that you go into for a number of reasons. It could be language, it could be just the way that they behave. And one of the best ways was, like, if you think about it, like, there are tendencies within certain regions that maybe they're more technical. And so you need to have a more technical explanation of your product in one region than you have in another. And so you can use the learnings from a particular region to grow and expand into other regions,
Mhm.
but you need to figure out what specific regional changes need to occur. The other big thing when you're looking to expand regions is you need to have depending on your brand and your brand's value,
Mhm.
you need to expect to invest in middle and upper funnel advertising
Sure.
so that people become aware of your brand or your product within that market. And so you may have really strong brand value in one particular market, but that may or may not translate into other markets. And
Mhm.
so some of that can be done within like your pre-research to understand. Some of that can be done by doing test and learn.
Mhm.
But the beauty of what Amazon has today is that Amazon has a lot of tools and technology that allow you to do auto translate your videos,
Right.
translate your copy to expand into those regions. So it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to do that. And so as you're setting up and you're thinking of a global expansion type of play, think about which regions are going to work best for your product.
Right.
And then, go in and maybe you don't go in with your full catalog of products, but you go in with a test of those products to understand which ones you want to bring. A hero product in one country may not be a hero product in another.
It's a great point. Obviously, you're not going to want to take massive leaps. So you're going to want to move into
Right.
markets where it might be an easier transition before you take a huge step. And to your test and learn example, it's obviously very important to create that awareness, but you're constantly educating.
Yep.
Because in a new market, although they might have some familiarity, maybe it's a different product or a different offering in that market that you have to educate those potential customers on. And that requires ongoing testing and learning.
Yeah, and listen, some regions are, I don't want to say some are easy and some are hard, because I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that they all require the proper research to understand and to understand how your brand is going to do within them. But you want to set reasonable expectations and understanding that growing in a new region is going to take time.
Yeah, it's not going to be a home run right
Correct.
off the bat.
It's going to take time. But even if you have strong brand recognition within, a region like North America, that doesn't just mean like if you go to Italy, all of a sudden you're going to have strong brand recognition. You may have some bleed over of that brand recognition, but you may need to build that in the same way in that new region, the way you did in the region as you were growing. But with that being said, I think that Amazon offers a lot of opportunity for cross-border growth and the ability to, bring your products and to use the fulfillment network to go across regions, like they have within the Pan-Europe region. And so it's a great way to possibly explore cross-border selling, and then figure out what higher or lower level of investment you want to make with your business.
Well, I think, let's face it, if you're a brand today, based off our conversation and opportunities, there are so many things that you can do today within Amazon that just didn't exist
Yes.
10 years ago, let alone 5, but for sure 20 years ago. And so your ability to expand or target new markets is really very opportunistic if handled correctly.
Yeah.
And the research, as you've described, put behind it.
Yeah, and I believe this about your primary region as well, right? Like I've always believed that advertising is the kerosene that really grows your brand.
Mhm.
And so launching a new product, expanding into a new region require a lot of retail readiness that you need to get put into place before you do advertising.
Mhm.
And so you specifically asked me about like advertising in those regions, but it's making sure that all that retail readiness is set up so that your ads can work as efficiently and effectively as possible. Now, once you're there and you have that, that's where you could expand into things like streaming television or
Yes.
Prime Video within that region, or doing video translation
Yes.
to be able to use the assets you've created in one place to expand into somewhere new.
Yeah, well, those are the opportunities I referenced, because it wasn't, I don't want to use the term easy, but the opportunities did not exist before. And
Yes.
it's wonderful. Great. Are there any new or less commonly used strategies that you think will be key opportunities for forward-thinking advertisers around competition?
At Amazon, we like to say we're not competitor obsessed. We are customer obsessed.
Yes,
We are
yes.
not competitor obsessed. And I believe that brands should be that way as well. Focusing in on your competitors as opposed to focusing in on yourself can sometimes be a distraction, because you don't know what is going on in the mind of your competitor, right? Maybe they are no longer planning to sell the product. Maybe they are shifting, the user group for that product. And so really understanding who your ICP is, who your ideal customer profile is, and how you're going to reach them is the way that I think you ultimately drive success. Now, with that being said, we did touch on a few of these earlier, right? So Amazon Marketing Cloud has a lot of functionality that's going to help you understand who your customers are, and how to use the signals from those customers to identify new customers. And so that could be anything from pulling the audiences and creating campaigns that are looking to expand those audiences, or doing the bid boosting that existed before, or identifying new ways to sell into an audience that you weren't thinking of. So those are probably the low-hanging fruit, if you will,
Sure.
that would give you that level of insight. I think the other thing is that, and it's maybe more not around competitors, but more around like, what are best-in-class brands doing to be successful on Amazon? And for me, it's really they're building test and learn mentalities and strategies, and they are constantly rinsing and repeating that test and learn mentality. And so if you look at a brand, it's very easy to see a brand in a case study, right? So Amazon published a case study at Unboxed. I shared this at the show with a company called Poppy.
Yeah, sure.
You're Austin based, they're Austin based. You know, we talked in that case study about how Poppy was a sponsor of the Women's NBA League and the success that they had from advertising that. But the piece of that was missed, or may have been missed if you weren't watching that, because you could very easily look at that and say, I'm not Poppy, I can't do that.
Yeah, right.
Was that 2 years before that campaign ran, Poppy wasn't doing any streaming television. So Poppy went from no streaming television or very light upper funnel type of advertising to full live sports. And they had also ran a Super Bowl ad that year. And it was all based off of a test and learn mentality.
That's great.
So they were going in and they were trying streaming television. And as they were finding the signals that were working, they were doubling down on those signals. And when you build that mentality within your business, what you're able to do is take advantage of the things that are working and stop investing in the things that are not. And you're constantly pushing yourself to be trying new things. And you have to have the budgets to be able to build and expand and grow. But when you're finding the signals that are giving you what you want, you're able to go back to the proverbial pouring kerosene on the fire that we were talking about, to expand yourself to more and more audiences.
Yes.
And so I think like that's the best practice that I'm seeing rinse and repeated from brand after brand after brand who's successfully growing on Amazon, that if you're not doing it within your brand today, you should be thinking about how to build that into your strategy.
Well, that's you hit on doubling down on what's working, but also, to our earlier discussion, constantly monitoring. Because that can shift just as consumer behaviors change, or as the appetites change. The cushion of a budget is certainly helpful. A lot of brands don't have the luxury of that.
But it doesn't have to be a big budget.
Just a budget.
Just a budget. I mean, I've seen brands do it with $5,000, $10,000.
Yes.
Right? Like if you think about streaming television and it's being democratized, which means that you can buy streaming television with no commitment, you can get in and test it with $5,000, $10,000.
Love it.
You need to have enough of a budget to run a successful test.
Yes.
But you don't need to have 6 figures to be able to get into that game.
With what Amazon provides today, to me as a brand, I can almost instantly understand what's working or not. No longer are the days where I have to wait. The results are virtually instant.
Yeah, I mean, there are still, MMM studies and things that you can do where you're coming back to look at the brand lift over time and the shopper panel data. And I think those are still important to be thinking about within a brand, because you do want to take that retro look at everything that happened, but you can be getting those signals where within, a short period of time of running a test, you can then make the determination. Now, what I'll caution you on is that you want to make sure you give the test enough time to run. I like to say, give the campaign time to breathe.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where, I'm going back to junior high, right? When you set up a testing methodology, you want to predetermine what that's going to look like so that you're not making knee-jerk reactions along the way.
Good point. Yeah. I think where I was going is the definition of time today is so much shorter than what it was before. Okay, we'll hit on some seasonal trends, peak shopping seasons like Prime Day, Black Friday, and so forth, holiday rush. How are some of these trends or strategies that you've seen work well for brands around these different events?
Yeah, I'll keep this kind of short and say like around any tent pole. That's the way we think of them at Amazon. And tent pole today could be Valentine's Day, it could be Mother's Day, it could be National Pets Day, where we'll run a special promotion, not just Prime Day and Cyber 11. Was it this year?
Yep.
You need to be thinking of the lead up period, right? The lead in, what's happening before, what's happening during, and what's happening after. I think gone are the days where you're just running the campaign for that event and you're actually thinking of the campaign in 3 phases, before, during, and after. And you're going to have different metrics for success. So before, you're really looking to build audiences and make people aware of your product. During, you want to then go back and remarket to those audiences that you had. And then after, you want to either get people to come back and buy more product from you or get the people who maybe didn't make a purchase.
Okay, so these tent poles are huge opportunities. How much history in these signals is important to understand what may have worked, not just in previous times, but in last year's event?
Well, when you start to look back at like a 5-year look back window, right, over the 13-month look back window, what some of our early testing is showing is that you can start to see what happens and how often a consumer comes back and buys from you over a longer period of time. Now, it was shared when the product was released. With that look back window, you do need to account for the fact that within 5 years it was COVID.
Yes.
So you did have a spike that occurred, and so you want to make sure you level that to make sure you're not miscalculating. And that's obviously one of the challenges you have. I mean, you guys look at years of data. It's one of the challenges you have of looking at years of data is that you can have idiosyncrasies within that were unnaturally driving demand. But ultimately, what I think you're looking for within that answer is what's the net result that has been driven from previous year campaigns, what was working and what didn't work. Could be a pricing strategy that worked or didn't work, or it could be a marketing or campaign strategy. What did your competitors do? What were they trying to drive? Where's your product at in its product life cycle?
Yes.
Because all those things are going to change how you go about this. If we go back to our retail example, right? And I actually noticed this at Black Friday this year, like the doorbusters didn't exist. Remember the doorbusters, like literally people busting down the doors to fight to get that one television?
Yes.
Doorbusters don't really exist anymore, right? So what's driving people is the action that you want them to take. And then the subsequent actions that you think you can get them to take because of that, right? And so if I go back to my sweatshirt, it's like my action for the holiday or for that tentpole event could just be to get my daughter to buy one sweatshirt because the data shows that if she buys that one sweatshirt, her lifetime value increases to X. But you may also find that shoppers who buy during tentpole events have a different type of behavior than shoppers who buy at different periods of time. And so you want to make sure you understand that consumer behavior.
Yes.
And then build your campaigns accordingly. And I know that's kind of a generic answer.
No, but
there's thousands of people who are watching this, and so it's hard to give very specific answers. So that's how I try to think about it.
Well, I mean, you obviously have a very informative lens on this business overall. And so the whole purpose, as we discussed, is to educate and to help our customers out there to better understand what they can and should be doing. We've talked about a lot, and there's a lot of exciting things happening. If I'm a brand owner or a brand, and whether I'm a mid-sized, large, or small, whatever it is, it could be overwhelming with everything that I have to understand. And so what advice do you give me, whether I'm at the point where I have the acumen to understand or I don't? What should I be doing to better myself or to better understand across what we're doing?
So when I get asked that question at a trade show, what I always tell people is that at a trade show, you're going to go to all these different sessions and you're going to write down all these notes. And at the end of the day, you have to determine what your 3 action items are that you're going to take out of this show, because you're not going to do more than 3.
Yes.
And you would love to be able to do all 25 that you learned, but the truth is that you're only going to get 3.
Right.
Depending on your role, right? If your role at the company is more of a C level,
Mhm.
then maybe you end up with 5 or 6 and you delegate all 5 or 6 of those. Or maybe you're your head of performance marketing. Stack rank the ideas in terms of, maybe if you think of it in quadrants, like how well do you know it?
Mhm.
What impact will it have?
That's a great idea.
And if you think of it in that quadrant type of mentality, what you want to work on are the things that have the highest impact. Don't discount it because you don't know it,
Mhm.
because if it has the highest impact, but you know it the least, that might be where you need to spend longer term. And if you only focus on the things that are high impact and you know the most,
Yeah.
then you may not be working on your long-term impact as well. And so that's how I try to think of things when I digest information. And then I think, and I know this is like silly to say, like, what are you going to actually go do
Yeah.
and when? And
The when is a very important piece.
right. And like that was my whole thing with like when I started playing with Gen AI and prompts, it was like I knew that I had to start asking Gen AI questions on a daily basis. If you ran into my kids and you asked them, like, how does your dad like Gen AI? They would be like, oh my God, he's so annoying. Because my answer to everything is like, well, go ask Gen AI.
Yes.
Have Gen AI help you write that email.
Right.
Have Gen AI give you the answer to that question.
Efficiency.
Right. But it's more about the fact that I realized that I had to play with it enough to get that level of knowledge up, because I know that the impact it could have for me
Mhm.
will be there over time. So when you're hearing about all these things, figure out what's noise that you want to ignore, what can have an impact on your business that you want to invest in. Maybe you walk away from here and you go, we don't have a test and learn mentality.
Yes.
And we really need to. I'm going to set aside $5,000 a quarter, and I want my performance marketing manager to run a test in Q1 with the $5,000 and come back to me at the end of the quarter and tell me, what was the test? What did they do?
Yep.
What was the result? And what is he going to do about it, or she? And like, that's an action that you can go and implement today that can become a repeatable mechanism for growing your business in the long run. But again, like if you try to go back and listen to this whole talk again, you're going to find 3 other things that you want to do than
100%.
the first 3 that you found.
I love that answer. So that was great. Having focus, but also one of the things that I say often is it's a decision not to decide.
Yep.
So just act.
Yep.
Make some decisions, and albeit some of those decisions may be problematic, but we'll learn from those mistakes and we'll be able to pivot and adjust our strategy accordingly. So that's great.
Yeah. At Amazon, we call it ruthless prioritization.
Perfect. Love that even
like
better.
you have to decide.
I'm going to start
much,
using that at Jungle Scout.
You can. You have to decide as much what you don't want to do as what you do want to do.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the group while we have this captive audience here today, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, one, I said this at the beginning, but I want to thank you and Jungle Scout as advanced partners of the Amazon Ads Partner Network. You guys are heavily involved in giving us feedback and helping us evolve a lot of these products that we've talked about for the advertiser.
Right.
Jungle Scout and I go way back. I was sharing with you before how Greg and I used to do some of the early trade shows in the space. And
Yes.
I love him. I love his family and everything that Jungle Scout has been and has become. And so thank you guys for all that you guys do for the community as well. I think at the end of the day, this can all be overwhelming for people. And I think that, there's lots of small actions that you can take that have a big impact on your business.
For sure.
There's a lot of updates and changes that are constantly happening at Amazon. I try to cover most of those on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're welcome to follow me if you think that would be helpful. And number 3, or maybe 4, I don't know where I'm at. Just take an action, right?
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing, is that if you can just walk away and take one action, you've started to move yourself forward, which will, honest to God, it will put you ahead of about 90% of the other people who are watching this, because they won't take action.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's well said. Very well said. We're excited at Jungle Scout because in February we hit a decade of data. And so 10 years in business, as you referenced, Greg Mercer is our founder. And I was super excited to take the reins here, about 10 months ago on Jungle Scout. And we have an unbelievable opportunity. We appreciate the partnership with Amazon. We appreciate the partnership with you. So Jeff, thank you very much
for
the time. And we'll look forward to our next session. Thanks again. So to best describe the data set and the advantage that Jungle Scout has, should first begin with understanding the 3P environment. Over 60% of sales on Amazon are through 3P sellers. And that equates to almost 70% of the actual sellers. And there isn't another business out there today that can track that data. Why is that? Because Jungle Scout has had over a decade, we're celebrating 10 years of history here. We work with over 95,000 sellers. We track over 600 million products. We have visibility into over 50 billion of sales. We train 100,000 machine learning models on a weekly basis. We track the search results of over 85% of customers. And so if that data doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does. But let me take you further into a few use cases which I think are critical to better understand the advantage. There's obviously the market intelligence. How do we measure fair share or market share in the market? How do we understand the innovation trends? How do we understand pricing power, competition? Bringing in the dynamic of keywords and our keyword spend. How do we best understand our ROAS? Automating media management. Finally, there's brand management, which is a whole slew of different use cases. Ensuring that unauthorized sellers are compliant, optimizing inventory costs, retaining pricing flexibility where it matters most. Jungle Scout gives direct line of sight into this very important, or what I would call critical data, that helps enable your Amazon strategy. So I'm pretty excited. I know the team is really excited about where we're going, and all of our initial discussions with both prospects and our customer base are super exciting about where we're going. But when you take a look at the business and how we're going to springboard into 25, we did a lot of work in 24, much of which I described with team building, assembling new options, better understanding our large customer base. And so I think as we enable these businesses to help execute across their Amazon strategies, it's going to be a tiered approach. The first is we've enabled a professional services division. We understand that the dynamic with larger brands is complex, and many organizations don't have the resourcing to help them understand this world of Amazon. And so we've built a professional services team that we now help brands to understand what they need to do, how they need to do it, how best to manage the data so that they can see around the corner to what's happening within the Amazon world. We're going to continue to refine our approach to make sure that the data that we provide is the way that every customer wants to receive it. We're going to ensure that our small sellers are enabled through our solutions so that they can understand the market and, as I said, have almost that crystal ball on where they need to go or what they need to do next. And then with our large brands, it's understanding not just their Amazon strategy, but how we fit into the overall equation and a true omni-channel plan. When you think about the repository of information that we sit on, I've been so excited to see what our data science team has produced, whether it's the machine learning that I referenced, some of the AI work that we're doing, but really the data accuracy and our work around that has been exceptional. And our customers will start to benefit from this as we continue to evolve that strategy. It's been one of our top focuses for the business on how can we make sure that our accuracy on the data is better than anybody in the market. And we're leaps and bounds ahead of everybody there. And so we have a true head start. I'm also excited to see some of the new innovation that will occur from the team. Our product team has doubled down on a variety of different things, and you'll start to see some new things and innovation roll out in the second half of the year, all based off our voice of the customer. And so Jungle Scout is evolved. I would never say the word transition. We're evolving to an even greater business. We have a decade of experience. We've brought all of the experience to market, and now we're serving not only the smaller seller community, but the largest of brands.
In 60 seconds or less, here's what you need to know from Jungle Scout's all-new State of the Amazon Seller Report, an annual survey of 1,500 Amazon businesses, ranging from individual sellers and SMBs to large global brands. Last year, both enterprise brands and SMBs cited increased competition and market saturation as a top 5 concern for their business, underscoring the mounting pressure to stand out and capture more market share in 2025. And one way of doing that is by expanding into new two categories. These are the top categories where brands see the highest growth potential on Amazon this year. But what may come as a surprise is where these products are being sourced. Compared to last year, 30% fewer businesses are sourcing from China, while sourcing from the US has nearly doubled, officially surpassing China as the leading supplier country. Diving into sales and profitability, the majority of enterprise brands generate $250,000 every month on Amazon, with 1/3 surpassing the $1 million mark. In terms of profitability, nearly half reported profit margins higher than 20%, with only 6% of enterprise brands achieving 10% or lower. The Amazon Marketplace is changing fast, but you can stay ahead by downloading this full report, which includes over 50 pages of insights, such as where businesses are spending their ad dollars, how pricing strategies are shifting, and the key trends shaping the future of Amazon in 2025. Are you ready to navigate what's next? Get the full report by scanning the code on screen or with the link below. Okay, welcome back. Now, I have to warn you, this next session has the potential to completely change the way you think about advertising on Amazon. And that's because a lot of brands treat all of their campaigns the exact same. But here's the thing, different stages of the funnel require different strategies. If you're not segmenting your campaigns properly, then you're likely leaving a lot of money on the table. That's why Destiny Wishon, CEO and co-founder of Better Media, is sharing her proven approach to structuring ad campaigns for scalable growth. In this session, she'll break down how to allocate budgets, optimize bidding, and how to segment campaigns to maximize results across every stage of the funnel. And during the session, Better Media is giving away a free Amazon marketing plan and consulting package. That's over $3,000 in value that you can win by commenting giveaway in the live chat below. So now let's dive right into it. Please welcome Destiny Wishon.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this incredible Jungle Scout webinar. I'm really excited to be here today. A funny little backstory, when Jake and I were talking about different subjects to present on, AMC came up, DSP, AI, all of the fun, shiny topics in the space. But we actually settled on presenting on a different subject, one that's probably a little bit more foundational to everyone that's watching, and that is strategically segmenting and managing your Amazon advertising. And the reason we wanted to present on this is because a lot of people don't quite realize Amazon advertising is not set it or forget it. There is multiple different goals that can be achieved with a really segmented strategy. So that's what we're diving into today. And I'm really excited to, one, talk about why this is important, but also give a lot of the tactical recommendations to implement this into your day-to-day strategy. So first and foremost, what does Times Square and Amazon advertising have in common? Well, if anyone's been on Times Square, it's incredibly overwhelming, but it's also one of the highest traffic locations for just general advertising, general billboard advertising, right? If anyone's been there, you've seen it, you take it all in. It's incredible. A lot of people pay really good money to advertise in Times Square. What does that have in common with some of the top real estate in Malibu? This incredible $58 million mansion on the cliffside, literally Cliffside Drive. Besides incredible views, it's location, location, location. What is, Times Square? What is Malibu? What is Amazon advertising all have in common? And it is the fact that it is an incredible location to advertise your products. Now, the problem with that is the best advertisements on the page are top of search. It's this top of search video that auto plays the moment you type in coffee. It's this sponsored products section in the top 4 placements on the page. It does not matter if you're ranked number 1. The first thing a customer sees when they type in dog food is an incredible headline search ad with a great lifestyle image, or the 4 sponsored products directly below. This is really important to consider because when it comes down to strategically manage your Amazon advertising, you're basically walking a fine line of balancing visibility in placements that are going to drive sales, the top of the page, and profitability, which is in placements that you can afford. Now, why this is such a fine line is because Amazon advertising is an auction model. So if you want the placement on the top of the page, you have to bid the highest. Now, the key to that is if you're not willing to bid, someone else will. Why this comes into play is a lot of people have chosen to stick with really low ACoS targets. And what they'll typically see is their sales decline. That's because your highest visibility placements, those location placements all come down to strategic bid management. You have to bid really high. So how do you balance both? How do you get amazing visibility without paying $98 CPCs? How do you balance the profitability of page 2 or page 3, or maybe your sponsored ads on a product detail page with maximizing sales by showing up at the top of the page with strategic management? Now, here's a screenshot from our internal dashboard, but this is something anyone can do and should be doing. All of your campaigns should be broken out by strategy. The strategies that we run at Better Media are efficiency, branded, ranking, auto, and awareness. Not everyone needs all of those strategies. You can choose the ones that are best for you. But all this means is we create our campaigns focused on these strategies. And then because our campaigns are segmented in this fashion, we can be really specific with how we're choosing to target those campaigns. So as you can see here, what we're looking at is what is our conversion rate across strategies? What is our conversion rate for our branded strategy, which is typically one of your highest, versus our efficiency or versus our auto campaigns? The reason we look at this is when we're considering a ranking strategy, we want to focus all of our keywords on our top converting terms. That's what's going to rank the best, right? We pull our search term report, we figure out where we have a competitive advantage on conversion rate. We put those 2 to 3 keywords in a campaign. We're really, really precise, and we drive top of search traffic. Now, the reason these are in a segmented campaign is, as you can see, the ROAS maybe isn't the best on those campaigns. Our CPCs are typically higher. Our ACoS overall balances out, but you can see that the ROAS for specific ranking campaigns is quite a bit lower. That being said, our efficiency campaigns are driving a $7 return on ad spend or a 13% ACoS. That's because that's their goal, right? It's only focusing on bid management and profitability. Now, our branded terms also have an incredible ACoS and the highest return, but we don't always want to put all of our budget to branded terms, because if someone typed in our brand name, they're probably planning on purchasing. It's not incremental. It's going to show an amazing return, but it's defensive. It's not actually driving top line sales growth. So we segment and create unique campaigns for all of these strategies. And that allows us to adjust our bids and our budget per strategy. So as you can see, what we're going to do is break all of this out into our performance breakdowns that we prefer. Again, our top of funnel, our awareness campaigns, our DSP campaigns, our video campaigns, we're okay with having a low ROAS. Our ranking campaigns, they're going to have a lower ROAS, but they're going to improve our positioning on the page. Our sponsored ad efficiency campaigns, they're going to perform really well. Our retargeting, remarketing campaigns, they're going to have one of the highest return on ad spends, but they're not going to be incremental. When we break out all of these strategies for both search and DSP, we can then adjust our budget as needed. So if a brand comes to me and says, in January, my only goal is top line sales growth, we're going to shift the majority of our budgets to efficiency and to ranking campaigns. But maybe in February, they need to show a little bit higher of a return on ad spend. Their internal, shareholders, their leadership team needs ROAS to be higher in February. We can shift our budget from our sponsored product ranking campaigns to our branded terms or our retargeting campaigns. This allows us to fluidly move budgets around to hit multiple goals and KPIs at once. And then the next step is we break this down by campaign type, sponsored products versus sponsored brands, and also product type. So if I'm launching a brand new product, I'm going to start with a higher ranking budget. If my product is going viral on TikTok and I need to protect my branded search, I can type in my ASIN and shift my budget over to my branded campaigns. These breakouts is what achieves our overall goals. So how do you actually do this in reality? Well, one, it's about your campaign structure. That's what matters the most. You create a campaign targeting one ASIN, targeting one ad group, and then you build the strategy that you would like that we just discussed. And then you optimize your bid for each campaign segment. So what does that mean? Well, before we dive into bid management, let's talk about overall fundamentals with Amazon advertising bid management. So this is a really good graph to showcase why bid management is so important for your overall Amazon advertising. If you are not running a bid optimization software or bulk upload strategy, you are missing out on a ton of opportunity. Bid management is the most important fundamental with your Amazon ads. So I figured we would do a quick run through here. This is a fantastic example. If we take a $20 product, assume a $20 conversion rate for all of our bidding placements, and assume that we have a 20 click threshold, you can see at a 50-cent bid, our ACoS would be 12.5%. At a $3 bid, our ACoS would be 75%. Higher bids typically means a higher ACoS, lower ROAS. Now, the second part to consider here is your traffic is also directly correlated with your bid. If you bid 50 cents, you're not getting a ton of clicks, not a ton of sales. It may take a month to drive a sale, but if you do, it will be profitable. On the flip side, if you have a $3 bid, you're going to show up much higher on the page, more than likely. You just may not be able to afford that traffic. Because at a $3 bid, as you can see, 20 clicks times $3, spending $60 in order to drive $80 in sales. So your ACoS threshold is quite a bit higher. This is what we are trying to balance with good bid management and good campaign structure. High bids, location, puts you at the top of the page. You're going to drive the most sales. You may not be able to afford those sales. Low bids are going to put your ad on page 2 or page 3 or deep in the product detail page of one of your competitors. You're not going to drive near as much clicks because people aren't going to see your ad. But when you do drive a click, it's going to be profitable. Keep this in mind because when we go back into our campaign setup strategy, you're going to understand how we're going to balance sales on one hand and profitability on the other. So as mentioned, we set up our campaigns in this regard. We'll have one campaign for ranking, which is campaign 1, and one campaign for profitability, which is campaign 2. Targeting the exact same keyword. Typically, if we're running a ranking campaign, we run an exact match. The reason being is we want direct control over where that keyword is showing up. I don't want to show up for dog food for puppies if my dog food is for elderly dogs, for example. But you can see we're going to have 2 different bids for those 2 keywords. The $5 bid is going to be all about sales and traffic at the top of the page. It's going to maximize our visibility. The 87-cent bid is going to be only focused on profitability. What we're going to be able to do is turn it on and off as needed. Now, of course, we could do an average bid of $3 to hit our ROAS and sales pivotal point. But what that doesn't allow us to do is to adjust quickly and run both campaigns at the same time. So the $5 bid is going to get the majority of the impressions and traffic when it's on, but we're not going to run it evergreen because we can't always afford to run a $5 bid. We're going to be able to turn it on and off as needed. So if my product is ranked at the bottom of the page, I'm going to spend more aggressively on my ranking campaign with a higher bid because it's going to drive more sales. More sales means more reviews, more velocity, and better organic rank. When I'm ranked really well, I'm going to shift my budget to my profitability campaign, which is going to be focused on consistency and ACoS ROAS targets. This is what allows us to run really efficiently and turn on and off campaigns based on product lifestyle, based on inventory, based on virality off platform. Another example is if I'm starting to sell out of inventory and I need to slow down my volume, I'm going to shift to my profitability campaign. And the reason we segment, again, we don't do this for every single keyword. We're very strategic around what we do this for. We don't want to duplicate keywords for every single keyword we're targeting. That doesn't make sense. You can use bid management for that. We do this only for our key strategies where we need separate reporting and to be able to adjust to the market incredibly quick. Separate reporting is incredibly important because we've all talked to internal shareholders who understand a $7 ROAS is great, but they don't understand market share. When you're able to break out your reporting like we do, we can go to them and say, hey, we're running this campaign at a $1 ROAS because it's improving our market share. Here's our share of voice. Here's our market share data. We're improving our BSR. They understand that. Versus if you just go to them at the end of the month and say, my ROAS dropped to $3, $2, they're going to be really unhappy. They're not going to understand the correlation. When you build out these segments, they get it. Your branded spend is not incremental, but we still need to cover it. It's an $8 ROAS, right? So these allocations are not only about being able to be very reactive to the markets and strategic, but also about better reporting to shareholders and better allocations across portfolios and certain ASINs, right? That's where this becomes incredibly, incredibly important. And the fact that most people don't know you can be this granular makes it difficult to have that Amazon advertising discussion with shareholders internally. So again, another example of this is the budget allocation. I can do $300 budget to my efficiency campaign if that's what I'm trying to maximize, and then $50 budget to my ranking campaign because I'm trying to slow down on my higher ACoS target, right? Just turn on and off as needed. Super, super powerful and can be achieved really quickly. Here's what this looks like at scale. We will have the ranking campaign, which is turned off at this time, focusing solely on efficiency. And then we also have a branded campaign where we're targeting our brand name at the bid that is applicable. Now, how do we break out the reporting that you can see in our next screenshot? It's basically done at the campaign naming convention. That's how we've chosen to do it. A lot of softwares allow for tagging or segmented reporting. Very similar. We recommend putting your strategy in the campaign name. This makes it really easy to build a pivot table on, hey, this campaign's for ranking. That is why it's terrible performance. This campaign is for brand defense. That's why it's incredible performance. Again, these allocations allow us to shift our budget so much more fluidly. Top line sales growth, we're pushing our ranking campaigns. Profitability, we're focusing on our efficiency campaigns. And then your overall shareholders can see your total objectives across the board. This is a little bit difficult at scale if you don't have clean and organized naming structure. So always start with that. The second thing that we again recommend implementing is breaking this out by campaign type. Now that we have access to things like streaming TV or sponsor brands video or sponsored display, you're going to want to break out these strategies by campaign allocation. Your sponsor brands video, you probably want to run a lower ROAS target because they drive so much visibility at the top of the page. Your sponsored display retargeting campaign, probably not incremental. So you want to segment that to its own bucket. This is how you take that $100,000 budget, you adjust it by goals, month over month, quarter over quarter, and then break that down into portfolios and product life cycle. This allows you to achieve both the profitability you're looking for, which is just bid management, and the sales and improvement in market share that you're looking for, which really comes down to velocity and placement on the page. It's a fine line to walk for both, but it is able to be accomplished through great bid management and great budget distribution. In order to do either of those things, you need a fantastic campaign structure. So thank you so much for having me again. Absolute fantastic to join this presentation, and always feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. Thank you.
Jungle Scout is officially 10 years old. Back in 2015, I created Jungle Scout to help entrepreneurs overcome the painful process of finding profitable products to sell on Amazon. But now, 10 years and over 1 million sellers later, Jungle Scout has evolved into the most trusted leader in Amazon market intelligence. Today, we empower global brands and sellers with comprehensive data analytics, built-in advertising automation, and intuitive visualizations that turn insights into action. It started because I was an Amazon seller myself. And at the time, I would like to sell any product that was essentially good opportunity. So like high demand, relatively low competition, pretty good margins. I was able to tell through some data points that Amazon was kind of cleverly hiding what was going to be high demand, low competition, those types of things. So like by developing these algorithms that then became Jungle Scout, I was able to have like a tremendous amount of success in my own business. So I was like, why don't I figure out a really simple way to kind of like package up these insights that I've created? So I decided to do so through a Chrome extension because it was like pretty pretty simple and easy to build. Hired one developer to help me with it. Within the first 6 or 12 months, I think we had like 50 or 100,000 people using it. And all the feedback we were getting was like, game changer, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this.
I've heard you tell this story before, but every time I hear it, I catch a different morsel, something more interesting. And so that's great. All right, so here we go. We get to this point. How do you then scale a business to the next level? What did you do?
A lot of hard, steep challenges or like steep learnings, things that I didn't know necessarily. So a lot of trial and error. But essentially what it came down to at that point was building out a team. It was figuring out what other problems we can solve for our customers or how to continue to make this software better for them. So for example, we started out as a Chrome extension. Pretty quickly, we found out that that limited us to the number of problems that we could solve for our customers. So we launched a web application that was a lot more robust. And the first few years, we just built out a really amazing team, stayed really, really close to the customers, iterating on the product, doing whatever we can to help these Amazon sellers. But we were limited by the amount of capital that we had to like reinvest into the business. So that's when we went out and found a equity investor and raised a bunch of capital to help us really accelerate our growth, but more importantly, accelerate how quickly we could solve problems for our customers and make a really amazing product.
And so what happens next?
Well, now we have a bunch of additional capital. We wanted to develop our product and make it the ultimate tool for Amazon sellers. So this is the customer base that we had been serving for the years leading up to this. So we did a whole bunch of really innovative and cool stuff around overall like Amazon market intelligence and really just helping them improve their business. But then we also found that there was another group of customers that we hadn't historically served, but kept coming to us and asking for Jungle Scout's help in their business. These were much larger brands that were selling on Amazon. And then all of a sudden, these giant businesses that we hadn't been serving before were like, wow, Jungle Scout really does have the best information and best data, but it's not exactly packaged how we normally digest it, or it doesn't quite give us the insights that we're looking for. But we know you're the best in the industry doing this. So like, can you help us? So the additional equity investment helped us invest in a new product line specifically for this group. So we acquired the software tool Downstream. We launched our own internal tool called Jungle Scout Cobalt. Both of these were really focused on these large brands. And over a few years, what we learned was, some of the things that we built weren't quite right. So we ended up kind of removing those. Other things they really liked, other things we needed to iterate on. So we ended up repackaging these two tools, Jungle Scout Cobalt plus Downstream, to release Cobalt 2.0, which is really the best out of both of those things and was really built on then years of iteration of what's best for these customers. I saw the future of it really bright. So it started to make me think about, okay, well, what's the right leadership and the right company structure and all these types of things so we can really take advantage of this huge opportunity that we have in front of us. And that's when I decided that, okay, almost a decade into this journey for me, I knew that my heart was really in the very early days. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, as we spoke about before. And when I looked forward for the next 5 or 10 years, I think it made sense to bring in someone that had more experience working with these very large brands, so that we could really focus a lot of our team on building a really incredible product for them. And that's Jay, when we brought you in 8 months ago.
Every month, nearly 3 billion shoppers visit Amazon. Brands and retailers are competing with over 6 million fellow brands and more than 300 million products to convert those shoppers into buyers. Navigating Amazon's ever-changing landscape requires data-driven strategies to rise above the rest. Introducing Jungle Scout Cobalt, the industry's most comprehensive Amazon business intelligence platform. Cobalt puts powerful market intelligence, retail insights, digital shelf analytics, and advertising automation at your fingertips. Streamline reporting with one of our many existing templates, or customize your own dashboards to view your most important metrics. Benchmark your performance data alongside your top competitors, as well as the broader market, so you can diagnose and correct underperformance. Enable seamless sharing with stakeholders to support investment justifications or provide insights for new strategies. Track share of voice for your most impactful keywords, and automate and optimize your advertising strategy to overtake competing brands. And set alerts to be notified as soon as important changes happen on either yours or your competitors' listings, giving you a head start on making necessary adjustments to your strategy. Plus, you can customize your Cobalt experience so you get everything you need without paying for what you don't. See why some of the leading retailers rely on Cobalt to increase market share and spend more effectively on the world's biggest e-commerce marketplace. Book a demo today. Okay, welcome back. With 12 sessions down and 13 more to go, we're about at the halfway point for Amazon Seller Week. We hope you've gained a lot of valuable insights and are making the most out of this incredible event. But now, next up is Chris McCabe, founder of E-commerce Chris and former Amazon insider. In this session, Chris will walk you through the latest strategies for navigating Amazon's new appeal process, including the key differences in how to appeal now versus just 1 year ago. With years of experience working inside Amazon, Chris is sharing invaluable tips on how to communicate with Amazon to protect your business. And during this session, Chris is giving one lucky winner a free listing reinstatement service. That's over $1,500 in value that you can win by commenting giveaway in the live chat below. So now, please welcome Chris McCabe.
Great, thanks a lot for the introduction, and always an honor and pleasure to be involved in Seller Week with Jungle Scout. Looking forward to hearing any questions on some of the issues I bring up today, some of the appeal-related problems. I'm Chris McCabe, of course, of E-commerce Chris, covering what I call the new appeals process. Amazon hasn't really announced per se that there's a completely new process for 2025. We noticed some trends in 2024 that sellers were slow to pick up on. They were being discussed on some LinkedIn posts. I know I had a lot of content about it, but I still talk to many, many brand owners who are maybe stuck in the past on a couple of these things, or they've consumed some content that's really dated or outdated, doesn't necessarily address changes in how Amazon evaluates appeals, how you need to evaluate what you need to send in for an appeal. And then, of course, I'll get into a few slides down the road, problems with getting yourself stuck. Maybe there are mistakes you can avoid so that you don't get stuck in the first place, but problems that you create that are kind of created on your side that don't need to happen. Of course, that reduces the likelihood that you'll need to appeal at all if you can avoid some of those mistakes. But then beyond that, if you're already in the appeals process, mistakes to avoid so that you don't elongate that period and lengthen it so that you're losing much more revenue. I mean, money's a little tight right now for a lot of different sellers and brands and services too. And some agencies have had trouble with getting these resolved quickly. We've had a lot of people from all over the spectrum asking us for different kinds of help. Hopefully this presentation today will help avoid some of the crises that we've been exposed to especially when they're developed and they're later on down the line, and when tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars have already been lost to an ASIN suspension or an account suspension, which of course is what E-commerce Chris is all about. So quick background on me: worked at Amazon for several years on the seller performance teams. Now I'm consulting sellers on why this matters, why understanding the appeals process and having the proper strategy is so important, because God knows we've been exposed to so many brands that have cost themselves a lot of time, effort, energy, stress, and frustration. Seller that we worked with, I thought I'd start with an example right out of the gate without actually naming the brand. It's a 9-figure seller that we worked with last year. They lost out on thousands. It could have been millions if we hadn't helped them reinstate the account. This is a full account suspension. I can give you their category. They're kind of in the health nutrition brand area, but they were gaining positive reviews, a data cluster of positive reviews in an abnormal fashion. It stuck out like a sore thumb probably for Amazon's tools and teams that caught up to what's going on here. Why is there a spike in positive reviews? They pulled one of their units or maybe more than one, looked at the product packaging inserts, found wording on there that they didn't like, typically inducements to leave a positive review. Been some controversy over, well, does it matter if you give product away or if you have these promotions and high discounts or just freebies? Does it matter if you don't ask for a review? Are you still within the limits? I mean, if you net a certain number of positive reviews from doing one of these inserts, one of these non-compliant programs or marketing initiatives that you put together, they're going to notice. They're going to question it. They're going to investigate and review you for a potential account suspension. It might not happen right away. In this particular case, they had lost, thousands, dozens of thousands. They were going to lose hundreds of thousands into the low millions if they didn't resolve it quickly. They had an account manager, so they had SAS Core, but the SAS Core reps weren't moving things along. They weren't getting solid, proper info. It wasn't helping, right? That's why we were called in to assist. So the bigger the tree, the harder the fall. I mean, a lot of large brands, whether you're mid to high 8 figures or low 9 figures, there's a lot at stake. It's not to say that smaller brands have nothing, at stake. A 5 million, 6 million, 7-figure brand doesn't lose a lot when their account's suspended. Of course they do. But when you're losing numerous, sales every single day while you're either waiting to hear back from Amazon or waiting to figure out what you're doing on your side, or maybe making some early stumbles and mistakes and putting your own appeals together. Again, further along here, I'm going to get into should you handle it yourself? Should you have somebody else handle it? And how to make that decision. But you have to make these decisions properly, accurately, and quickly, right? If you take forever to make the decision, you're sacrificing maybe 7 to 10 days just scrambling, figuring out what to do. You're costing yourself a lot of revenue. If you make the wrong decisions and you're too hasty, then you're going to burn through some appeals paths that might have been worthwhile if you had handled them properly, right? So you got to fall somewhere in the happy middle there. You don't want to be too quick, too hasty, inaccurate content, but you also don't want to take days and weeks to figure out what your strategy is or to be constantly changing your strategy. So match that with what's going on the Amazon side. I mean, appeals for suspension reinstatements weren't that easy before, but it's also gotten tougher in the past year. I would say in the past 6 to 9 months, especially. Amazon's communication, it probably already seemed vague and generic and boilerplate from the get-go. It's only gotten worse in my experience. Their templates are often sent out not matching your situation at all. They have almost no information in them. Sometimes you need specific ASINs to be cited, and they're not giving you any ASINs. It's extremely vague. They've only gotten more vague over time. Of course, we know that Amazon's unlikely to gravitate away from boilerplate responses to your appeals, but sometimes even the initial performance notification indicating that your account's down or that your top seller ASIN is down has very little info, maybe one sentence indicating, is it, code of conduct related? Is it a listing policy issue? Something intellectual property related? You have to really make sure you zero in on that info. And if they're not offering you a path to appeal it, if there's any doubt or ambiguity about how they want you to handle it, especially on the compliance side, you've got to get on a call with either your account manager, SAS Core, if you're paying for that every month, with account health reps, preferably US-based reps. Any rep you can get that isn't just reading from a script or doesn't sound like they're making things up. I usually recommend that you call more than once to kind of fact check what the first person told you. But any way you have of getting additional information. Sometimes we hear from brands who say, we have an account manager, we have called account health services, maybe they've got some relationship to managers within their category or business development or other Amazonians. They've tried those people, and those people who are internal to these teams don't even get better information than the seller. So sometimes people just start appealing in order to get information. Rarely that works. It might be worth it if you've got absolutely no doors open to you in terms of how to get more information, but you're not going to expect to get tons of information from Amazon's communication that shows up in your account health or in the primary email associated with the account. So you have to be kind of ready to understand this as your fact-finding or research mission before you even begin to appeal. In other words, don't put the cart before the horse. Don't start appealing and just make it up as you go based on conjecture, guessing, assumptions. We see a lot of sellers doing this. They're costing themselves a lot of grief. A lot of their energy gets burned up with low yield actions. So have a strategy from the get-go. If you've been suspended before and you were able to get out of it, maybe you've got a strategy that you could adapt from before. Don't assume that. But, you know, the best way to avoid this is to identify mistakes other sellers are making that you might be making, whether it's, again, product packaging inserts that have language that Amazon stopped allowing a couple of years ago. Obviously, that's a review abuse situation, a mistake you can avoid. When it comes to listing errors, keyword abuses, using trademarked keywords on the back end, any other kinds of intellectual property violations, either on the back end or on your detail pages, or things like unsubstantiated medical claims that get your product, which isn't a medical device, flagged as a medical device. That's another common one right now. These are avoidable mistakes. Have somebody in your organization designated to be a compliance manager, a compliance expert. They know all the policies, they know all the local and federal laws tied to your product. That's the person who's responsible for assessing why Amazon may be taking your listing down. And maybe even that person decides, hey, this is an Amazon mistake. We're going to dispute this because we did have all of our ducks in a row, right? But either way, these appeals aren't easy. You're threading a needle. Have a strategy up front that matches your situation. Don't do a lot of guessing. If it is compliance related, if you weren't able to avoid an easy compliance error, make sure your compliance officer or manager or expert, if it's not internal to your organization, you make sure that you vet properly trained expertise on the compliance side, and you have that person either handle the appeal for you or guide you through that process. So certainly don't just click through acknowledging that you violated the policy or even that you broke a law or committed some sort of legal offense if you're not even sure if you have or not. Not the time or place to guess. So again, get in the right mental space, understand the situation, understand that risk management is a huge piece to this. Don't take a lot of risks. Don't hire the wrong people, whether it's, this could be a VA, this could be full-time employees you hire who tell you that they understand the Amazon space. Maybe they used to work in an agency. Maybe they told you they knew what they were doing and they didn't. Make sure you're testing that and you're vetting it. But high-level tasks that could damage or suspend your account, don't make sure you're trusting that to a low-level employee or a VA who may or may not know what they're doing, right? Some things can't be fixed that easily. You can't just dispute a code of conduct violation. If you're guilty of that code of conduct violation, you can't just dispute it by proving to Amazon that you never violated any policies, right? Amazon isn't going to take you seriously if it looks like you're approaching something from an amateur view with amateur style appeal content. If it sounds or looks like you don't even understand the nature of the problem. Again, a lot of brand owners or account owners maybe don't focus just on the Amazon side of their business all the time. So they might have their agency or their Amazon dedicated personnel handle their appeals. That's fine as long as they know what they're doing, right? For example, most brands have had fake negative reviews or reviews that are Amazon's fault, like an FBA error, damaged inventory that was returned to FBA. So that's a good situation to understand, well, whose fault was it? Are you acknowledging and taking responsibility for something going wrong that you shouldn't? Is the employee or the VA or whoever you have working on this, are they clicking these radio buttons in Seller Central saying, yes, we acknowledge the violation, just because they don't want to go through the process of disputing it, or they don't know how to dispute it, or they don't understand the dynamics of the appeals process, or they don't have a strategy? These are things you can test people on to see if they know their way around Amazon and they know the appeals space and they know what they're doing, right? Otherwise, you're just winging it or they're winging it. That can create a lot of havoc and damage if you just keep getting denied over and over. So let's get into a little bit of the old ways of looking at suspensions of listings or accounts and the new ways that are different. In the old days, you probably heard this before. You've heard of this before with other sellers. Something went wrong. Looks like we did something wrong. We made some mistakes. Just admit that we made the mistakes. Give them a plan of action. Tell them what the mistakes are. Showing them a plan of action that demonstrates the root causes, right? You've heard that phrase a lot. Root causes in terms of we did this wrong. This is why we did that wrong. That's why. And then the rest of the document, which is typically a one-pager, presents how you fixed it. What you did to mop up the mess is the second section, root causes, section 1, section 2. What we did to immediate steps to clean this up, mop up the mess. And then section 3 is, corrective actions. What are we doing to make sure this doesn't happen again? Old style stuff, right? You still do those things if they request a plan of action from you, which I'll get to in a minute. But we see a lot of people who are committing policy violations or violating the code of conduct. For example, attacking another seller for whatever reason. Maybe there's been strife within the category, tension between two competitors. One seller attacks another. Those are code of conduct violations. They don't want anyone coloring outside the lines like that. They don't want anyone deciding to do what they feel at any one moment, assuming that they can apologize later, assuming they can eat crow if they're caught, and then send in a plan of action. Amazon doesn't actually ask for a plan of action in those situations. They want a dispute. They want you to prove to them that you never attacked another seller. Obviously, if you've already attacked the seller and it can be proven, that's a sticky situation. You can't dispute it at that point. Certainly don't send a plan of action even if they don't ask for it, just because it sometimes worked in the past. That rarely works now. Lots of appeals are denied simply because they open it up, they see that it's a plan of action. They didn't want one. They didn't ask for one. They don't know why you're sending one. Sometimes it looks like it's just some template that you bought somewhere, or they think that you hired a service that all they have is a POA. They don't understand the dispute process. They don't understand the dynamics of your suspension. So they just give you a POA because you paid them and they have to give you something. You don't send a POA in like that. They're going to reject it. They might send you a message that says, we need better information. That's a rejection. It's not that they think your POA is halfway okay and they just need a better one. That's one fundamental misunderstanding I'm seeing from a lot of brand owners that's costing them a lot of money right now. There are situations you've got an SAS core rep, you've got a paid account manager, you're paying them $5,000, you're paying Amazon $5,000 a month for them to be your, account manager. There are occasions where they are going to say, I talked to the relevant teams, they want a plan of action. Drill down into that a little bit. Sometimes they're just saying that from past experience where they were told to get a plan of action. It might not actually be that a plan of action is requested. If they really want one and you have to give one in order to move it forward, then yes, that technically is Amazon asking you for a plan of action. Maybe not in the performance notifications, but your account manager said that they dug into it and they want a plan of action in order to proceed. Doesn't mean it'll be solved with a plan of action. It just means it's another step along the appeals path. So you might not be able to resist that and say, nope, we want to dispute it. I still tell brands, if you're being asked for a plan of action for something that is 100% obvious, it's an Amazon mistake, they sent you the wrong message, they misunderstood something, definitely dispute it and don't send a plan of action and push back on that. Even if your SAS core rep says, nope, no dispute, send a plan of action, I would have some back and forth on them on why you want to dispute it. But ultimately, if they refuse to look at the dispute, you probably will have to do a plan of action. All other cases, do not send one in, right? If they're not asking for it, you don't send it. That's the old way of doing it. Third point I want to make, lots of confusion over this. I've seen on seller forums, posts, different mastermind groups, LinkedIn, posts that I've made, comments afterwards. In the old days, which takes us back 9 months to even early 2024, people would appeal a mistake by a VA, somebody you already terminated, did send in the termination paperwork, or an employee who made a mistake, you blame the employee, say, look, we didn't keep an eye on these guys. They're the ones who made the listing mistakes. They're the ones who left reviews, positive reviews for our products. Amazon was willing to accept that. Very rarely will they accept that explanation now. So much older way of looking at it. If you're going to blame, if you've been caught failing to stop your VA from doing something they shouldn't have done, could be all kinds of, we've seen VAs do all sorts of things that their employer or the brand paying them didn't seem to know about, which is alarming in and of itself. Maybe a quick sidebar here would be, don't bring in any VAs unless you thoroughly understand that you're going to be watching and monitoring their work. You're not just flipping the keys to them and telling them to jump in your car and drive away. That's a terrible way of operating an Amazon business in a climate where you might be on a dispute-only path. They might read your appeal that says, yep, your VA, we get it. Your employee wasn't being watched. You hired a service. You didn't know what they were doing. We totally understand the situation. We don't want to let you back on because we don't trust you to sell. You don't have enough control over your operations. I've seen this numerous times. People at Amazon have told me this. Account managers have told clients this. If you're hiring bad services, if you're not vetting services that are running your account, running your company, whether it's a VA or somebody else, you got to go another step further and show Amazon, prove to them really that you're never going to hire people like this again. Otherwise, why reinstate you today if you're just going to go out and hire another VA service, another amateur level employee and gave them important level tasks, high level tasks performed by lower tier VAs or employees, undermines their confidence that you know what you're doing, even if you've been selling for a few years. They're going to be reluctant to reinstate you. So you're going to have a robust appeal there that proves to them you can be trusted not to hire people like this, not to delegate to people who really don't have the chops to handle Amazon level work. There are people who are still sending in multiple appeals, calling account health, trusting everything the account health reps say. I don't know why they're not taking that info with a grain of salt. Maybe it's just an Amazonian on the other end of the line. I still talk to a lot of sellers who are calling in the morning, wherever their time zone might be in the United States, but don't call in the morning. Don't talk to reps in India. Don't accept their scripted responses to, hey, why was our appeal rejected? Be the one on the call who's running that call. Be proactive, be aggressive, get real answers to real questions. Don't accept what they say at face value and think that, oh, if I adjust my appeal in a couple of, 2 or 3 basic ways, the next one will be accepted. That's how people get in a cycle of being turned down over and over without really knowing why. And then they're calling in, kind of talking past each other. Well, account health says the information's proprietary. I can't tell you why you've been denied. Well, how are you supposed to revise an appeal and submit it and get a better result if you're just guessing, if they're not telling you anything, and if you're just accepting at face value basic tips they give you? Well, we generally guide people on how to write an appeal or a plan of action for this. That's not good enough, right? You have to start, if you're not going to get any information at all about why you're getting denied, then your escalation will focus on that. The fact that there's no real info on why you were denied. Maybe it was never even read in the first place. Maybe there are no annotations that even exist saying anything other than invalid appeal. I can't tell you how many times we've been on calls with brands that we work with where the account health rep will come back after a 5-minute hold and say, you know what? There's nothing there. I went back and there's really no annotation. Sometimes they won't admit to that. You might have to press them a little bit. Or they'll come back and say invalid appeal. That's all it says. Well, that means if they didn't take the time to annotate their reasoning for rejecting you, they probably didn't take the time to read it. And quality assurance doesn't really happen with these teams, right? These teams are kind of, nobody looking over their shoulder, no quality assurance or investigative review, no significant degree at least. So, that's a problem. You need to escalate that. Try to get calls with leadership teams. I'll get into that in a second. But don't just keep spinning your wheels, spinning in circles, and accepting what they say at face value. You're going to have to run things from there and push them to get a better answer. So, this is complicated. This sounds stressful. This sounds difficult. It's gotten more difficult. Yes, we talk to brand owners that have some past experience handling things like this, but decide if the new way of appealing, if the new series of rejections that people typically experience, or decide if that's something that you're up for. You know, if you got your full account reinstated in the past, is this a parallel situation that seems like it's something you can solve, or is it more complex? Have you had trouble reinstating your own ASINs, right? Sometimes it takes people 5, 6, 7 appeals to get this right. That's losing a lot of revenue along the way. Presumably, if you pressure Amazon to take a more solid review, if you get a managerial or executive level review of an escalation, you might handle it faster. Well, do you know how to do things like that? Is it so important that you can only do it yourself? Is the owner the only person who can handle the appeals? Or is it so important that you can't handle it yourself? That doesn't matter who within your organization handles it. It's too precious, it's too important to let somebody else come in, to not let somebody else come in and run it who's got some strategy experience and some escalation experience. So mastering this stuff is important. We think mistakes are easy, rejections are common. We don't recommend anyone rewrite an appeal that's been rejected unless they've got solid answers, solid research into the denial reasons I mentioned a moment ago. There's different tools and resources you can use out there. Some are inside Amazon, some are outside Amazon. Talking to account health might not, fit the bill. If it's a listing policy or a catalog issue, you want to get to those teams by calling in through Seller Central, getting them to connect you to catalog. What I was referring to a moment ago in terms of getting escalation or leadership teams, so-called leadership teams, to call you is escalations to senior management by email, sending from the primary email in your account, and asking for somebody on those teams to reach out by phone. They're probably going to call you anyway. If you email one of the S-team executives that most sellers know who those people are at this point through LinkedIn posts and so forth. If you don't, that's something you can research, but escalation paths that are the traditional replacements now for the old way, which was writing to Jeff, right? The Jeff@Amazon email queue that would just get you to kind of a regular old standard employee that might get you another copy and paste response. That's the old way of doing it. People still do it. You might still get a response. You're not going to get as high level or a quality response as you would if you escalate it through proper channels to the people who are actually responsible for this stuff now. Jeff isn't responsible, nor his teams, for much of anything in the escalation or appeals process at this point. Jeff has a $500 million yacht to water ski behind right now. He's not worried about this stuff, and neither are a lot of the people that used to work on it for him. So get one of those calls, talk through the problem with somebody who they will call you. You can't schedule a call. You have to keep an eye on your phone. You have to make sure that the number associated with your Seller Central account, whoever's in charge of that, is ready to get a call within 1 day, 2 days, maybe 3 days after you submit an escalation email. Tell them you're stuck. You tried to resolve it. You didn't get good information, good answers from Amazonians that you dealt with previously on whatever the team is that you went to. What's their suggestion? What is their appeal path? They can't just call you and say, you know what, I don't have any ideas. Yes, I work for Dharmesh. Yes, I work and report to Andy Jassy. Yes, I work for these different executives, and I'm the one handling this with you, for you, but I don't have any ideas. We're just rejecting you, and I can't give you any information because it's proprietary. Push back on that. Why are they calling you? Why are they the person who's handling the escalation for that executive if they don't have any ideas, if they don't have the experience, if they don't have the knowledge, if they don't have the proper training? You should probably lobby for or advocate for somebody else to handle your case. Otherwise, you're just going to end up escalating again via email. It's not any good for Amazon or you, right? Time will go by. They'll call you more times. You'll email in more escalations. It'll become a real mess. So make sure that first person, that first point of contact you get has the chops to understand what's going on. They've got some solutions. They understand that if they don't give you any ready-made solutions that fit your case, not just general advice, that's probably not very useful. If they don't have something tailored to your situation, make sure they understand, well, we're not just going to sit here suspended, losing all this money, getting no answers from Amazon. We're going to keep coming back lobbying for other executives and other manager level Amazonians to review this again and give us at least enough answers so that we can revise and appeal. There's no shame in asking for that and pressing for that. I understand, again, the complexity here. Maybe not everyone is up for pushing leadership team members when they call you after you escalate to one of Amazon's senior executives. I understand that people are casting about for solutions outside their company, outside their comfort zone, looking for expertise. There's no shame in that either, but make sure you're vetting people. I can't tell you how many people show us basic templates that they bought from somebody, or they reached out to some service. Maybe it's somebody just, spending a lot on Google keywords, Google ads. That's not, finding somebody quickly on Google. That's maybe step one. That's not enough to just close the books and say, okay, we found somebody quickly. Looks like they have some good reviews. I mean, a lot of reviews are padded these days. I'm sure everyone knows that. Don't accept things at face value. Do some research. I'll give you some tips in a moment in terms of what to look for when you're hiring an appeals process and what the red flags are, because it's not enough vetting to just look at some reviews and have a quick phone conversation. I don't know why in 2025 people are still making hiring decisions that involve the entire fate of their Amazon business or the health of their Amazon account based on quick 5, 10, 15-minute conversations and a quick perusal of 5-star reviews, which may or may not be padded, whether it's Google reviews or elsewhere. It looks like a lot of the terrible services people are paying have padded their reviews with 5 stars, if only to drown out all the bad reviews they've gotten. This is basic stuff. If you're a brand owner or you're a business owner on Amazon, you should know this already. You shouldn't have to, get a lecture from somebody like me on it. But be that as it may, here are some tips. How to vet a consultant. I mentioned the reviews a moment ago. Certainly look for deceptive or vague tactics on their side. Another example is make sure the person who's sales pitching you isn't the person who acts like they're going to handle your case and then they hand you off to somebody who's maybe an overseas VA or somebody who says they worked at Amazon but didn't. If the communication is vague, if they don't give you a clear-cut strategy, I'm not saying a blueprint, because sometimes these things evolve throughout the process. They might not say step A is followed by B, C, D, and E every time for somebody like you without fail, and there's no permutations on what we do if one appeal gets rejected or if we get stuck a couple of appeals in. No, of course, it's a fluid situation. They might not give you the blueprint, but ask some questions that reflect their understanding that they know how to get unstuck, that they have a pervasive strategy for how to handle Amazon mistakes, maybe Amazon failing to review something that they've done wrong when they rejected your appeal. So evaluate their communication level. Do they sound like they're using buzzwords, throwing things like that at you? Do they have a robust plan to get you unstuck if it becomes a more nuanced or challenging situation? You're the one who ends up paying in the end if you hire somebody subpar. I won't dwell on it beyond saying I've seen these fill in the blank, copy and paste templates. Amazon's not going to take you or your business or your interest in getting reinstated seriously if you're just doing the garbage in, garbage out strategy. They're not going to understand why you trusted the fate of your business to a person or a service or some fill in the blank template. They're aware that template mills abound. So you're going to have to customize content, especially if it's going, you probably don't need me to convince you that if you're sending something to a senior executive at Amazon, you have to make it unique content. Whoever they delegate it to doesn't want to pull up your account and your annotations and say, oh, this is just spam. This is the same exact thing they sent to somebody else, one of my peers. That person already answered. I don't need to spend any time on this. I'll get credit for spending time on it. And I can tell my boss, he or she will get an email from me saying, yeah, I reviewed this, so I'll get credit for working on it, but I don't have to spend any actual quality time on it. What is the point of doing that? You're just wasting your time. You're burning appeals paths. You're sending amateur level content in for something that, maybe it's not even your top selling ASIN, but it's still going to hang out on your account health and be a demerit against your account health if you fail to resolve it. Or if it's a policy violation and you just send something in acknowledging it where you're not even guilty. That's another problem I've seen. People hiring consultants who say, oh, here's something that just admits fault and gives a bunch of ways that you're improving things and how you'll avoid this in the future when it should have been a dispute from the get-go. I would say 20 to 30% of the time when brands come to us asking us to take over for a subpar consultant they hired, they should have been disputing it from the get-go. Instead, what were they doing? They were accepting responsibility because that was the template or the generic appeal package or document that their consultant gave them because they were too lazy or too unprofessional to figure out what the solution actually was. So this only hurts you, right? And you're probably not getting your money back from whoever you hired. You're costing yourself future revenue. This is just a short list or a short checklist of questions to ask yourself, questions to ask them. If you need help, whether it's assessing somebody that you've already worked with or deciding if you want to do it yourself, figuring out, what to do next, these situations are nuanced. Appeals are getting rejected more now than they ever were. A lot of sellers are simply stumbling out of the gate and picking the wrong appeals path or hiring somebody who picks the wrong appeal path, or they're going straight to Amazon Legal when no legal issues are present because they think, that'll help come across the right way. I'm not sure what the reasons are. I'm still talking to people about this, day-to-day basis. I'm still trying to do research into why people are sending in worse and worse appeals at a time where your appeals actually have to kick it up a notch and be a little bit better. So check out our content videos, contact us at the support email here. Happy to answer any questions. If you want to email us, just put in the subject line that you listened in on this and you saw this and you had questions. You could just put Jungle Scout in the subject line. But thanks a lot again for having me present this information. I'll throw it back to you, and obviously we're happy to answer any questions as they come up. Things change. Amazon's not static. Things pop up that even we don't necessarily see coming, even with all the Seattle visits and going to Amazon Accelerate and talking to all the Amazonians that we do. And sometimes Amazonians don't see some of these things coming either, whether it's on the account management side or the executive level ones that we've met with at places like Accelerate. So if you have questions on any of the content here or some emergency crisis pops up, certainly feel free to reach out. Thanks again.
And so what I'm looking at here is a number of different things. So in this segment, the average price point for these pullback cars is $16.15. So it's, sub $20, very easy for people to purchase. Estimated sales price around $17 on average. So there's some numbers that go above and below this, depending on which products we're looking at. But the average sale price tends to float around $17 from a promotional perspective. I can see also in 1P and 3P, there's a slight difference. 1P sales tend to be a little bit more expensive price point. When I can scroll down, I can see performance for these brands in the space, what their revenue estimates look like, along with the price of the products here, the average price for what's in this specific segment I've created. But a couple of key things I want to focus on. One is my price band here. So here are all of these various brands. And I can see there are a couple of outliers that do run a little bit more than the kind of mean average, but most fall in a very specific grouping. And then there's a few at the end that dip off. So the majority is competing all in the same price point, right? So you would think that price is probably not as big a factor in this grouping because everybody's so similarly priced, whereas other parts of Amazon prices are very, very wide. Now, the other thing I'm going to look at is price over time. So as I mentioned, right, mid-November through the first part of January. And what I can see is in my market segment that pricing in mid-November actually dips, leading into that kind of T5 sales cycle. And then it steadily climbs back up and actually maintains all the way through the week leading up to Christmas, and actually has the highest price point that week because we could assume that that's probably the lowest sales, right? Everyone's already made their purchases. And so price points are a little bit higher to capture any sales at a better rate for making a little bit more money on them. And then it starts to slowly trickle back down, but not anywhere near where it dipped down to pre-November. So I could use this as a gauge to think, when do I adjust my pricing with my product, or where do I want to place myself? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want my pricing to be bouncing and shifting so much that consumers notice that, well, normally it costs this, but right before that, they bump the price to put a sale on it. Consumers that are pretty savvy are going to catch that. And that's not a great experience as the buyer. So we don't want to do that. So what I can look at here is a little bit more of a breakdown. Here are the brands in this space, their average price point, their estimated average sales price. So when they run a discount or promotion, this is where it tends to be. And what's really interesting is in this group, there's not a huge difference between the actuals and the sales. So there's not massive discounts being given here necessarily. So let's say this brand, Melissa & Doug's, one of the top brands in the space. Their average price is $21 for the products in this space. Their estimated average sales price is just around $20, $20.24. So it's really less than $1 discounted down. Very small discounted rate. So what I could look at this and I could infer is, well, if I'm trying to win the race to the bottom by lowering my price, I probably could, but that's probably not the race I want to win. But based upon where some of these top performers offer their discounted rate, how can I get my product to price in that same point where I know that I'm going to be competitive with them and I'm going to be just as lucrative on the page as they can be? And price is no longer a factor, right? If product A costs this and product B costs this costs the same for the consumer. Now I've got more opportunity. How can I outperform that competitor by having a better listing, better content, better all the different things that lead into that? But there's a lot more we can do with pricing. But Cobalt, in this case, is going to give us really good views of the data to understand the shifts and trends across a unique time frame, looking at the overall segment, and then also comparing our brand's performance to other brands in the space, being able to isolate us and say, how do we sit against everybody? How do we look on pricing against this type of product?
Okay, welcome back. If you ever launched a product on Amazon, then you know that guesswork just doesn't work. Sure, there are some brands that are getting lucky, but for the larger brands with a lot more to lose, they have to leverage consumer data in order to predict what will sell before they actually invest. So how do you remove the risk and launch products with confidence? Well, that's exactly what Eva Hart, owner of Couples Coffee and Fantaswick, is here to cover. She's an expert in using data to design, launch, and scale winning products on Amazon. In this session, you'll learn how to analyze market trends, validate product ideas, and use competitive data to ensure your next product launch is a success. And during this session, Eva is giving away 4 free bags of Couples Coffee, a box of K-Cups, as well as 3 candles from Fantaswick. Plus, Jungle Scout is giving out a free Cobalt market share analysis report in any category of your choice. That's a ton of value that you could win by commenting giveaway in the live chat below. So now let's get started here. Please welcome Eva Hart.
Thanks, Jake. So as Jake mentioned, I'm Eva. I work here at Jungle Scout, but I also own a few of my own Amazon brands that I launch products for on a monthly basis. I also have worked with over 20 successful brands with launching products. I've launched more than 100 products that are currently listed on Amazon. Those span from beauty, fashion, baby essentials, home decor, food and beverage, anything that you can think of. I have probably worked on a product development strategy or designed a product for it. So what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today is really just using that blueprint that I have developed over about a decade of developing products, launching products, designing products. These are the things that I've learned work the best, no matter where you're at in your journey. Although I'm really today talking to those enterprise brands who are adding to their product catalog to gain market share. But really, this is what you can use if you are new to the market, if you're entering a new market, no matter what kind of phase you're at in your Amazon journey. So to start out, we'll talk about using data and insights to drive product development. And then we're going to talk about perfecting the product launch life cycle. in developing a product, you have to do product research. So although you have a catalog of products that you're already offering, and you're probably going to launch something that kind of fits in those to expand and grow market share in the category that you're already in, you have to do product research. So these are some ways that I do product research for all of the products that I launch. I'm using Google, social media, and of course, Amazon. So with Google Trends, what you can really see here is interest in a product over time. So you're just typing in different keywords that kind of go with what your thoughts are on what you might want to launch on Amazon that fits into your category. You are able to see what keywords are trending, what is the seasonality of the product. So is this a good time to launch it, or have we already kind of missed out on that seasonality? Maybe it's a good product to launch next year or later in the year. And then also just kind of using Google's UI and searching into Google, you can see what competitors are running Google ads. What are the product images that are popping up in the Google UI for that product that you're looking to launch? It's just a really great way to see what's going on in the market and with keywords. Then after that, you're going to want to go to social media. I mean, just about every generation is using social media. We just launched our State of the Amazon Seller Report. And if you take a look at that, you can see that really there's brands of all sizes are using social media and consumers as well. So if you take a look at our consumer trends reports, you have to be on social media. So just kind of depending on who your target audience is, what age range, things like that, they might be using different platforms, but I really suggest just taking a look at all of them when you're in this product research phase. Again, just searching on TikTok, Instagram, things like that, seeing what videos are popping up as trending, what type of interactions are they getting, what are the comments like, and of course, what do those products look like? So this is going to give you an idea for what colors are trending for these products. Like, what do people like? Is it pink? Is it this new, color of blue that you've never seen? This is going to give you ideas for the product design. And then TikTok also has a really cool keyword insights tool. So all you have to do is type in a keyword that you're thinking about, such as trendy shampoo, and then you're going to see what that popularity is. You can see related videos, go straight to those videos. It's just kind of going a step deeper than just using the social media's UI. So this is a really cool tool. You should definitely take advantage of it. This will help you with honing in on your social media strategy once you're in the launch phase, but this is also really helpful for product research. So, the next thing that you're going to want to do is really just dig into Amazon. You can use Amazon's UI along with market intelligence tools. So you want to see what products and what competitors are showing up on page one. What are the keyword volumes, search trends, things like that, competitors' market share, doing your price band analysis, like, is this product actually worth, what I can realistically purchase it for from my supplier, and what is it being listed for on Amazon right now? And just kind of getting an idea of that revenue split between 1P and 3P sellers and figuring out where you would fit into that market. So I have been, launching, as I mentioned, launching products for about a decade now. And before I worked at Jungle Scout, I actually used Jungle Scout's tools to do product development. So kind of have this story about this little toddler dress that I had designed years back. I came up with this concept. I pitched it to the brand that I was working with called Fayfair. And they were like, this is adorable. Of course, we would love to launch this. But what's going on in the market? Who are the top competitors? How many competitors are selling dresses or t-shirts or onesies similar to this one that are going to be competing with ours? They wanted to know how many, times big competitors were showing up on page one. They wanted to know keyword analysis, all of that. So basically, I realized at that point, I have to use some type of market intelligence to really validating why we should launch this product. So coming up with a cute product, that's honestly the easy part, but validating, is it going to work on Amazon? That's the part you have to do a lot of research. So At the time, I used Jungle Scout's tools to see what keywords were trending, things like that. But I didn't have access to Cobalt at the time. So I remember going through Amazon's UI and having to hand count the competitors, how many different competitors, brand names were popping up that sold products similar to this dress. And then I had to calculate by hand the share of voice, how much of page one did these top competitors own. So now that I have access to tools like Cobalt, I can tell you that when I'm making a pitch to a brand for certain products, it has cut my time down so significantly. It's actually pretty crazy. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what I used Cobalt for most recently. It was just a couple weeks ago, actually, that I was pitching to a hotel amenities brand some products that I think they should launch to get themselves out of the B2B market and direct to consumer. That brand that I made the pitch to, actually, is the owner of it. He is going to be talking to you guys on Friday, on March 14th. So day 5 of Amazon Seller Week, you are going to hear from the owner of the brand that I made this pitch to. He is going to be on the panel from ideas to bestsellers, product development, and launch strategies. His name is Stephen Roll. He really is a product launch genius. I started working with him when he was selling about $4,000 a month on Amazon. He's now selling over $1 million a month on Amazon of hotel amenities. So you really don't want to miss him talking. He is also going to be alongside John Elder from Black Label Advisor, and then also John Aspinall from Pickthu. So definitely tune into that. But I am now going to kind of cover some of the data that I had shown to this business to say, this is what you should launch in the direct-to-consumer market. So using Cobalt, I was able to get a revenue split by primary subcategory. Now, this is really helpful when you're deciding what you want to launch within your category. So if you were selling in this category, you would likely have soaps, body washes, shampoos, conditioners, lotions that you're selling. What this chart really shows us is that the sets and the kits are really what is dominating that category by revenue. So if you're selling just shampoo and conditioner alone, this tells you you need to put them into a set and sell the shampoo and conditioner side by side. That is a little bit different than the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Those are more so the products that I know my husband uses, where it's like a 15-in-1. You can use it on every body part that you have, which they're also really great. But you can see here sets and kits. So that's where you are buying a bundle that has a body wash, a shampoo, a conditioner, a lotion, things like that. Some other data that I provided to him was that, as I mentioned before, that seller split between 3P and 1P, just so that they could see where they would be at in the market, as they are a 3P seller and not using Vendor Central. Also, another great feature of Cobalt is being able to see market share. So, whereas one shop, the brand that I was making this pitch for, they are dominating in their category where it's hotel amenities. They own the category. They are at the top with market share. But if they're going to enter a direct-to-consumer market, they're going to have different competitors. So being able to show them, who's at the top. Obvious ones here: Redken, L'Oreal, Pureology. These are brands that you're going to see in stores as you're shopping. You're going to probably see advertisements for them online. They're extremely popular. They're household names. But what's really cool about this chart here is that it shows us the others in gray. And so that means all other brands. And so that shows us that there's room in the market. If L'Oreal owned 50% of the market, we might not want to touch this. We might want to go to the next idea. But as we can see here, there's really room in the market for new brands to enter and compete. We can also see the revenue by brand. So again, looking at Biolage, Tea Tree, Pureology, things like that, we are able to see what their estimates of what they're making on Amazon. And of course, these aren't going to be your top competitors if you're entering new to the market, or if you are a smaller brand, but it's always good to get an idea of the total size of the market. Another thing that I love about Cobalt is it gives kind of some AI insights. So it's taking that data from the segment, and then rather than you having to analyze it on your own, just kind of giving you some insights top level. And these are things that I share with brands all the time that I'm developing products for, and I use this for developing products for my own brands. Really important one here being the average selling price. I'm using this for price band analysis and deciding where I'm going to price my own products. So after doing all of this research, so this is kind of the stages I went through to get to these products here that I then pitched to One Shop to launch. So without having this really detailed PDF with charts and data, keywords, trends, social media showing what are those trending colors. If I hadn't put all of that together, then yeah, these products might look great and it might sound fun to launch them. It's going to be easy for their brand because these are formulas that they already have. They're really just repackaging, repurposing. But without that really in-depth competitive intelligence and market intelligence, it would be really hard to prove what is the ROI going to be if I launch these products. So this is all in your product development phase. There's two other things that I want to cover really quick that you should be doing while you're in this product development phase. A/B testing. It is so important. So most of the products that I design 2 to 3 versions of them. So different color variations, they might say things slightly different on them. And I personally use PickFu to test all of my products. So this really just gives you an idea of what a consumer is looking for, either color-wise, style-wise. You can find out what the readability is for the text that you chose on your product, really anything. And I like it just for a gut check because obviously I have my favorites of what I've designed, but being able to see what consumers are looking for has been a great way for me to confirm, like, yes, I was right on that. And sometimes, unfortunately, I realized I was wrong and I launched not my favorite product. But that's why you really need to use things like focus groups and tools like PickFu before launching your product. Another thing you're going to want to take a look at while you're developing your product and before you get into your launch cycle is reviews. So you're looking at competitor reviews, seeing what consumers love about their products, hate about their products. Are there comments about packaging? Things that I've really learned is people will complain that a product came damaged or something like that. And then you can kind of assess from there, do I need to make thicker packaging? Do I need to add more padding into the packaging? I've gotten some ideas for creating more giftable style packaging because I'm looking at competitor reviews and I see people saying things like, oh, the packaging was so cute, I didn't even have to wrap it to give it as a gift. So you really want to dig into those competitor reviews to get ideas for features of your own product. You can either do this obviously by just going to Amazon's UI and looking through those, or if you're using a tool like Jungle Scout, you can use our AI review analysis, and that will save you time from sifting through hundreds of reviews. And instead, it will kind of summarize it for you. And it will also give you ideas on how, as a competitor, you could improve that product to launch it. And it will really help you with your go-to-market strategy. So after we have developed, designed, researched our product, and we know exactly what we are going to launch, and we have ordered it from our supplier, this brings us into the pre-launch phase of the launch cycle. So this is when you really want to prepare your product for market. You want to optimize your Amazon listing and really build anticipation around that product. So what you want to start out with is building your product story. This product story is going to set you up for success for your launch, your post-launch, for everything. If you don't have this, you really can't build your Amazon listings, your promo campaigns. So what goes into this product story is your key selling propositions of your product. What really makes your product stand apart from competitors? Of course, you want to list features, but what are the benefits of all of those features? Build out a document that talks about everything about your product that makes it amazing. And then, of course, you want product photography done in this phase. You want really great images of your product, videos of your product, if possible. And you are going to use that to build your Amazon listings, your promo campaigns, all of that. So that kind of brings us to creating teaser campaigns. So you don't just want to announce to your consumers the day your product is live on Amazon, hey, this product is live. You want to build anticipation. So if you have an email marketing list, you want to blast out teasers of this product, give a sneak peek of it, show teasers of what it's going to be, let people know what day they can expect it, give options for pre-ordering, just really create some buzz around that product. Next, you're going to want to determine pricing. Now, this is a little bit different than what we talked about in the product development phase with the price band analysis. You're already going to want to know going into ordering a product, what you're going to be able to price it at to make sure there's ROI for that product. But after you've ordered it and you're in your pre-launch phase, this is when you want to talk about, okay, what price are we going to have on release? Is it going to be different than what we hope to get our product to at some point? Are we going to have coupons and deals? So I suggest always having a deal running for your launch and deciding how much revenue you're willing to set aside to really get momentum going on your product. So if whether that's a 50% off deal, buy it the day of launch, get 50% off, 40% the next day, 30% the next day, whatever your strategy might be, I really do suggest having coupons and deals running to get people really excited purchasing this product and get that review cycle going. Also talking about subscribe and save, you want to make those decisions before fully launching your product. I suggest that any brand that has a consumable product, you get in subscribe and save, and you be willing to give a really good discount for those who enroll in that. So with Couples Coffee, over 50% of our revenue is actually from subscribe and savers. So it's a really great way if people love your product, it's being refilled on a monthly basis, bi-monthly, whatever they choose. But I think people get excited that they can get a discount on your product from here on out if they just enroll and subscribe and save. And I can tell you, I'm on subscribe and save for a bunch of products that I don't even use anymore. I forget about it. So there's also some revenue to be gained in that. So after the pre-launch phase, obviously we move into the launch phase. Once the inventory is in the FBA warehouses and the product is available to purchase, this is when you want to drive more product awareness and gain reviews. So we've moved out of the teaser campaigns for our product. We are now going to make a launch announcement, and we want this announcement to be everywhere. So you want to be launching that on your social media, to your email marketing. If you have other Amazon listings, you can certainly utilize those to cross-sell new products. You should be doing that. You want to create a lot of buzz, especially day of, and then those first few weeks. So the Amazon algorithm, the way it works is when there is high traffic to a listing and it's getting conversions, Amazon is going to boost you up further in organic rankings. That's just going to help get more organic eyes on your listing. But that's also what gets you those Amazon choice badges, #1 new release, and other little badges that they put up there. It's because they're seeing, oh, this product is popular. A lot of people are converting on it. So with our Fantaswick candles, we've actually gotten the #1 bestseller or #1 new release on almost all of our candles. And how we do that is we drive a bunch of traffic from our social media page the day we release, and it gets a bunch of eyeballs on that listing and also converts because we've been teasing that product for weeks, sometimes months leading up to it. So if you want to get those badges, a really great way is to just drive a lot of traffic to that listing from off Amazon. The next thing that we want to do is launch Amazon ad campaigns. My suggestion in this phase is to do automated targeting and set a low budget. Unless you are launching a product that is part of a variation that has a lot of reviews on those products, then I say put in the full budget. But if it's launching to its own listing without reviews already on that listing, you probably aren't going to convert well on those ads. If you're anything like me, I do not purchase a product that doesn't have at least 50 reviews, to be honest. Amazon considers a product retail ready when you have at least 25 reviews. So that's about when you would want to ramp up on your spending. So that kind of brings us to how are we going to get reviews on this product? So one of the ways that Amazon has set up for you is the Amazon Vine program. So that is for new products that have less than 15 reviews on them. And this can help you get up to 30 reviews. So kind of as a reminder, the Amazon Vine program doesn't require reviewers to review 100% of the products they receive. I think it's about 80 or 90% that they have to review. And these people in the program, they receive 3 to 5 products a day. So they might not choose to review your product. So you are not guaranteed to get 30 reviews. And then also you're not guaranteed to get good reviews. So I think, to be honest, the reviews that I've gotten from Amazon Vine on my candles and my coffee are some of the harshest critics. I think they just receive so many products and they're used to seeing a lot of junk, and they're wanting to keep their place in the Vine program. So they don't want to just be, blasting out meaningless reviews. So they really go in depth. And what I will say is I've learned a lot from those reviews on ways to improve my products, but just kind of setting you up for expectations that these aren't just going to be a bunch of 5-star reviews. You're going to actually get really, really insightful reviews. And oftentimes they're not going to be the star rating that you want, but it is a way to get your listings retail ready. Another way that you can do this is on Amazon, you can request reviews. So each product that's purchased, you can click a button within Seller Central, request a review from that purchaser. Or if you're using a tool like Jungle Scout, all you have to do is toggle on that review automation, and then it's going to automatically send those review requests to all eligible buyers. So that's a really great way to boost your views. Another way that I love to utilize is product inserts. So I've received a lot of products that have inserts anywhere from the size of just a small business card to a full piece of paper, basically. And they use those inserts to tell about the product, talk about the brand, and to, cross-sell other products in their catalog, but also use it as a way to request a review. So you want to make sure you are not breaking Amazon's terms of service here. You cannot ask for a positive review. You cannot say things like, if you had a great experience with our product, please leave a review. You just have to be pretty simple with how you state things. You also aren't supposed to use 5 stars on it, because that can be misleading, telling people just to leave 5 stars. So basically just a way to say, please leave a review for us. And you can also send out messaging like that on social media. So one of the ways that I get reviews for our candles and our coffee is I will I'll post on our social pages, post on our story, and say things like, if you purchase one of our products, please leave a review, send us a screenshot, and we will send you a free product. Again, it's not breaking terms of service because we're not asking for a positive review. So just be super careful with that. So once we hit about that 25 review mark on Amazon is when we've moved into the post-launch phase. So now we are really focused on maintaining sales, testing new creatives, increasing our ad budget, and really just kind of analyzing the success of this launch, because of course we're going to launch more products and we want to learn from the process that we just experienced with this product. So optimizing advertising campaigns, you want to make sure that you go a bit more in depth with your Amazon ad campaigns. You can do that through the Amazon's ad console or doing it through tools like Cobalt has to offer. But aside from those Amazon ads, I suggest turning on your Google ads. So driving traffic, as I kind of mentioned before, when you drive traffic to your Amazon listings from social media, from Google, things like that, Amazon really rewards you. There's also a reward program. It's the Amazon Brand Referral Bonus Program that actually rewards you up to 10% of the product sale for every sale that's made with these special tracking links when you're driving traffic from off Amazon to on Amazon. But it also helps with your organic rankings. So turning on those Google ads and those social media ads are only going to help push you higher on the search page on Amazon. And anybody who's not using social media ads, you really should be. I just pulled the trigger on a pair of shoes I don't need yesterday because I got an Amazon ad or a social ad target on Instagram. I can tell you that most of the things that arrived to my house are things that weren't needed, but they were on Instagram. And it's just, it is so, I've just heard so many success stories from brands who are using them. I am just the perfect target for those. So if you're not running social ads, you need to do that. Next thing we'll want to do is more A/B testing. So we're now out of that phase of testing. Do people like the product, the look of the product? We're obviously not changing the design now, but this is when you can A/B test your title, your images, your A+ content. You can use Amazon's native tools for that, and that will really give you deep insights into your conversions, units sold, sales, things like that, that will show you this version is better. And we know because this version converted more shoppers and had more eyeballs on it. So using the native tools is a really great way to test out your creatives. But you can also, if you are testing out new product like lifestyle imagery, I suggest using things like PickFu, getting an idea of what consumers like more, and then launching that on Amazon. The final phase of post-launch is tracking product performance. And this is where we're going to analyze the performance of the product, kind of get an idea of what happened in this product launch, what we want to change for the next one. Things that you're obviously going to want to look at as simple as unit sales, looking at the reviews, both the positive and the negative, deciding like how you can change your products in the future to really help meet the needs of the consumer. Wanting to look at market share, share of voice, keyword ranking. All of this goes into product performance and the things that you're going to want to analyze to make sure you're choosing the right products in the future. You can use tools, again, such as Cobalt that will help you do this very seamlessly. We have product launch dashboards that are set up to really give you a good idea of the performance of a new product. So after you have, really assessed your product launch performance, this is just going to help you fuel more product launches, really grow your product catalog and dominate in your category, increase your market share. And you really just need to have market intelligence to do that. That wraps me up for today's session. If you are interested in hearing about how Cobalt can help with your future product launches, please get in contact with us. I really hope you guys have enjoyed Amazon Seller Week. We have another session coming up today. It's going to be amazing. Please stay tuned.
300 million people all around the world turn to Amazon to shop online, and 66% of consumers start their product searches on Amazon. So what does that mean for your e-commerce business? Amazon presents an opportunity to put your products in front of hundreds of millions of consumers that are motivated to make a purchase. If you're already selling on Amazon, you may have some key strategic questions. Are you reaching the right audience at the right time? Do your products stand out from the competition? How about launching new products or expanding into new markets? Where do you find the data to support all these decisions? I'll tell you how. Jungle Scout Cobalt. Cobalt provides reliable and in-depth e-commerce insights to guide your Amazon strategy and drive ROI. Here are 5 reasons to choose Cobalt to grow your e-commerce business and beat the competition. You'll gain access to 2 years of market share data instead of the typical 90-day window available to most businesses. More data allows you to better understand trends and make accurate predictions on year-round product demand. You can track whether your brand is gaining or losing market share without making tedious manual calculations. Market share data allows you to build strategies to own your category. You'll discover core and emerging competitors and their share of voice. By understanding how your visibility compares to your competitors, you can take action to ensure that your listings stand out in the market. You'll get insight into the most current product and category trends. Through an understanding of which products are in demand, you can better determine which products to launch on Amazon. Easily explore long-term investment or acquisition opportunities. With key market insights, you can better forecast which markets and products have the highest potential for growth. Leading brands trust Jungle Scout to provide an essential part of their e-commerce technology stack. So if you're interested in learning more about why enterprise businesses are choosing Cobalt to win on the Amazon channel, sign up for a demo today. Do you know how last month's performance stacked up against your competitors? With Cobalt, brands can easily quantify how much market share they're gaining or losing, and how they fare against their competitors. Cobalt is the leading market intelligence and product insights platform that empowers some of the largest brands with market share data and actionable insights into consumer behavior on Amazon. Brands use it to track their competitors, learn what strategies they're employing, and identify new investment opportunities. Before, you couldn't uncover product details and top keywords that you or your competitors were targeting. Now, you can easily see the organic and sponsored share voice for any given keyword, market share in any given category, and view revenue, unit sales, and other game-changing insights for any product on Amazon. So take your business to the next level and schedule a free demo of Cobalt today. Okay, welcome back. As you know, Amazon ads can drive a ton of growth. But if that's the only strategy you're using, well, then you're likely leaving a ton of missed opportunities on the table. In fact, the fastest growing brands on Amazon aren't just relying on Amazon. They're leveraging influencer marketing, they're leveraging creator collaborations, and external traffic to scale beyond what Amazon alone can offer. So that's why Liron Hirschkorn, the CEO of Incrementum Digital, is here to show you how to break free from the limitations of Amazon ads and build a marketing ecosystem that fuels long-term growth. In this session, he'll uncover how to work with influencers, how to generate external traffic, and how to create a strategy that amplifies your brand across multiple channels. And during this session, Incrementum Digital is giving away a free growth plan. That's over $1,500 in value that you can win by commenting giveaway in the live chat below. So now let's get started here. Please welcome Liron Hirschkorn.
Thank you, Jake. The main thing that I want to talk about is, and I think this is a really important topic as Amazon is evolving. It's something that I see that is kind of overlooked, and it's creator connections. If you stay until the end, I have a little bonus discussion, something brand new that was not even in the slides that I think is really important for everyone to pay attention to this year around Amazon advertising. So you're going to get a little bit of a bonus at the end, but the main thing I want to talk about today is creator connections. And the reason I think this is really important is, over the last several years, Amazon has evolved, and there's more competition today. Advertising costs have increased, and the brands that I see that are having an easier time have having success on Amazon are the ones that have more of a moat. And the way they've developed that moat is by having branded searches on Amazon. When you have branded searches, you don't need to rely as much on Amazon ads. You don't need to rely as much on, reviews. People are already coming in and searching for your brand. And the way brands are achieving that is based on their outside marketing off of Amazon. So Amazon has developed the ability for you to connect with influencers and creators. And it's one of the, to me, lowest hanging fruit opportunities to drive incremental sales into Amazon in a, let's say, risk-free way that's typically going to be cheaper than advertising. It has some pros and cons of using it. It's not perfect, meaning I wish Amazon did kind of more with it, and I think they will. But if you're not utilizing it and you have access, it's in beta. Most accounts do have access. But if you're not utilizing it, today's discussion is really to get you to think about why you do want to use Creator Connections. So the first thing is, what is it, where you can find it? You can find it in your advertising console. You will see, in one of the menu options, you'll have something called Creator Connections. You'll be able to go into it. You can see here a screenshot of what that looks like. And to, tee up a little bit of, data around it, influencer marketing, I think as we all know, is growing. You can see here, brands are just spending more and more money on influencer marketing. And then the other important aspect of it is that you want to have a mobile first kind of approach with influencer marketing because, it's mainly happening on mobile devices. But, I think the point here is that, this is a growing area. And I think for brands on Amazon, it's especially important. And the reason is because you're competing, let's say you're a US-based seller and you're competing with a brand based out of China, then that brand out of China may have advantages that you don't have. I just saw a post on LinkedIn about the hair extension market and how there are, thousands of sellers based in China and they're all in this one area. And the reason is because the way China is set up is they have regions where there's different manufacturing hubs of different products there. And all these thousand sellers I saw map or whatever it is, the thousands of sellers are in the same region and they're all next to the factories and they can get samples quickly and negotiate pricing face to face and do things that maybe a US-based seller has a harder job to do. But one of the things that US sellers have always been, I think, better at and have an advantage at is on the branding and marketing side. And I think influencer marketing, their ability to connect with influencers, talk to them, right? I think that's where you have an advantage. And that's where you can drive that outside traffic and incremental sales and build brand awareness to be able to better compete on platforms like Amazon. Talk to you about a case study as well at the end of this of kind of a good example of that. So let's talk about the benefits of Creator Connections. So obviously, to me, this is all incremental sales. You're reaching an audience that you're not cannibalizing. Let's say sometimes when you're doing advertising on Amazon and you're also ranking organically, you don't know if you're spending money on ads, if you're, you would have gotten that sale organically anyway, and you may be cannibalizing, especially on the unbranded keywords. Here, you're really reaching an audience that's outside of somebody just searching for your searching keyword on Amazon. You're also getting potentially the ability to increase, organic rank. Amazon likes outside traffic. You're getting social proof outside of Amazon. So you're getting this content that's being created, whether it's on YouTube, sometimes it's Amazon Live or somewhere outside. You're getting awareness and you're also getting sales. So you have, benefits in multiple ways. You have these assets out there. You have awareness of your brand, somebody who could buy, maybe not today, but maybe sometime in the future, but they're aware of the brand. And you're getting sales and potentially increased ranking. Now, a few things to know about Creator Connections is that I'll talk a little bit about the downside of it, but basically you go into Creator Connections and you are setting up a campaign. Each campaign can attract up to 200 influencers, so they can apply. And actually, I have an account also as an Amazon influencer, and I don't really use it. I don't really promote products so much, but I have it because I like to go into the creator side of it and see what things look like. So I've gone into the creator side of it, and basically there, the creators have a platform they can log into, and they can see all the products that are available. They can sort by things like the commission that you're paying them, et cetera. And then they can kind of choose and apply. The one downside is that you can't really reach out. There's no mechanism like, good software tools with influencers have the ability for you to like reach out to the creators. You can't do that within the Amazon platform. If you wanted to do that, you would have to reach out to creators outside that are, part of the Amazon influencer platform and tell them to apply. But you don't have that mechanism within Amazon, but up to 200 creators will apply. The good thing is that as long as you're offering, I think, a pretty good commission, which we'll talk about, you will have creators that will apply, and you can have up to 200 creators that apply into a campaign. I believe a campaign can last up to 90 days or less during this period of time where they're promoting. The, Creator Connections, it fosters authentic content. You empower creators to share their genuine experience with the products. The platform allows brands to pick up to 3 relevant categories to resonate with their target audience. So one of the ways that creators can find products is by looking specifically at kind of categories. So you can choose, three categories of where your product kind of fits into. And then by leveraging influencer marketing, you are able to increase awareness because the post can be made anywhere the creator wants, including, again, on Amazon, like Amazon Live, or, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. And they're using a unique link, which is going to track the sales and pay them a commission. My recommendation is that you give at least 20%. I think that's kind of like the standard of what people are paying, like on TikTok and, other platforms. I think if you have maybe a high price product, then maybe you could do less, maybe 5 or 10%. If you have maybe $100 product or $200 product, maybe you could do somewhat less. But again, I generally recommend 20%. And if you want to get more aggressive, if you want more influencers to see the product, then I would recommend that you do higher, because again, they can sort when they go in by like commission that you're paying. Or I've seen, like, we have clients that are in, let's say, higher margin products, like let's say supplements, and they might do 30% because they want to get that first time purchase customer, that new to brand customer who has the ability to potentially, order additional products from the brand and order, again and again if they like the product. So, beauty, supplements, again, you may want to consider, does it make sense for me to order to give a higher amount? And I also recommend that you test, right? In terms of the commission that you're paying. The more commission that you're paying, the more incentive you're giving for the influencer to really, take time to create great video, put it out there, and, try to get as much traffic and relevant audiences towards it. And the good thing is you can experiment with this as well. Can create a campaign that you're giving 20%, you can create another campaign giving 30%. You can kind of experiment with this as well. Now, the one thing I really recommend, a few things with working with the creators. There is some time that it takes to do this because you'll have creators applying, and some will request a sample of the product. Others might just buy the product, but some will, request a sample of the product. And so you need to see do you want to vet them? I don't know, depending on how expensive your product is. If it's $10, maybe just send it to everybody who requests. If you have a $50 product, maybe you vet them a little bit. Look them up, etc. So communicating with them is really important. It's also really important as part of the campaign, you can give instructions, a brief. And I think this is one area that it's really, really important to write out a creative brief. This is where you give your best practices. Do you want something specifically mentioned, a benefit of the product in the video? Do you want them to demonstrate using the product? Or you've probably utilized creative briefs before, or have somebody on your team, or have had an agency do it. Highly recommend you do that and give clear instructions. The better instructions you give, the more you're going to get the kind of content, the desired outcome that you want, who your target audience is, what the goals are, etc. At the same time, you want to give the creators creative freedom to kind of showcase their creativity. So I wouldn't, box people into a specific video, but I would give best practices on, and that could be even something like, please use this hashtag on your post because, people can find, all your videos based on kind of like this hashtag on TikTok or Instagram or something. So it's a matter of, I think, giving a good brief and highlighting, I think also for the creator, like what makes your product different. So you're giving them some education on the product and helping them, create the best content that they could create. So just in terms of setup, when you go into Amazon Campaign Manager for Creator Connections or for advertising, you go into an area called Brand Content. Then you locate Creator Connections, you create a request, and then you fill out all the necessary information. You give a budget for the total amount you want to spend on commissions, give the commission rate, and you give the products. The one time I would consider putting multiple products in a campaign is if you have a listing that has variations. For example, you have a t-shirt and it has 5 sizes, or you have a blanket and it has 5 colors, etc. Then I would include all those in there so that the creator can choose to promote whichever one they want or whichever size they have, etc. And that makes sense. Otherwise, I generally would not put in products from like different listings into one campaign. The next thing you want to do is you want to connect with the creators. Creators will start by submitting content. Some might create a free sample. You can talk to them about that. And then you would connect and align with ones that share interests and goals. So you can research and vet those that apply. And then you can use multi-channel fulfillment to send them product. And again, I think with creators, it's really important that you have a process. So send them the product, and then you want to follow up, right? Did you receive the product? Then you want to follow up or give them a date, like can you make the post by this date? And then again, if they don't, you want to follow up with them. I think the ones that get the most out of this are the ones, it's easy to just create a campaign and you'll get something out of it. But the brands that get the most out of it are the ones that are communicating regularly with the creators. They're following up, they're making sure they got the product, and they have good lines of communication with those creators, and you're just gonna get more creators who actually apply and actually submit content, because there'll be people who apply and end up not submitting any content as part of it. So that communication, that back and forth, that takes a little bit of time, but again, I think it's really worthwhile, because if you're paying 20% commission, you can say that's equivalent to a 20% ACoS, which is typically better, I think, than a lot of people are getting on Amazon. Plus, you have these abilities. You have the ability for something to go viral. You have content that's out there, right? You have all these benefits, outside traffic, that make it, I think, better than just an ad. And so it's worthwhile putting in that time. Once you have a campaign, the only change you can make is increase the time. Maybe you made it for 30 days and you want to increase it to 60. You can also increase the budget allocated to it, but those are basically the only adjustments, that you can make. And, Amazon creates, these tracking links. So it makes it really easy to track the sales, and you're only paying on what's reported in the platform. The one thing I will say also, when you're doing influencer marketing in general, and I think specifically here, is that I think you will get sales that are also, one, you don't pay for them, and two, that are not necessarily reported in here. And the reason is, as you know, somebody can put out a post on TikTok and they have a link in bio, but consumer sees that on TikTok. They might just go to Amazon and search your brand. So there are going to be situations where people don't click the link, etc., and just go to Amazon, and you're not going to see that in the reporting. You're also not going to pay for that, and then it's all seamless in terms of like the payments, the process, right? Amazon kind of takes care of everything, which is why I really like using it within this platform. Before I go to the next slide, one of the challenges is, again, Amazon does not offer this robust platform where you can sort through influencers, find them, reach out, invite who you want. I think Amazon really, I'm hoping this year they invest more into it and make it more robust, so that you really, almost like a software tool where you can create a campaign, you can reach out, you can invite influencers as well. But that's one of the limitations. It's only kind of who applies, unless you're having conversations with anyone, outside of that platform, and let them know you have a campaign going. They can find it as an Amazon influencer. One other thing you could do too is you could think about developing relationships with these influencers. Once you have them applying, into your campaign, you can also try to reach them even outside of the platform, or have, let them know, hey, I'm going to be doing these monthly. I'd love for you to continue, especially if they already have your product, right? I'd love for you, especially the ones that you see have sales that are successful. I'd love for you to continue to promote the product. You could try to continue to develop that relationship with them from that initial, connection that, Amazon is making for you. One recommendation that I have, and the reason I have this recommendation is Amazon had me take a survey with questions related to Creator Connections. And one of the questions there was, would you be interested in licensing the content that the creators are creating, and how much would you pay for it? How do you think it's going to look like in the search results? Would it be the brand plus the creator name, or, all these questions? So my prediction based on that is Amazon is working just like other platforms like TikTok. They allow you to run ads, and Instagram and Facebook, they allow you to run ads through the content of the creator, as an ad. I think it's going to happen here on Amazon too, where you'll be able to pay a fee. And I think the fee will be based on the size of the creator. If they're smaller or bigger creator, you'll pay a fee, maybe let's say $200, and you'll be able to license that content for a period of, let's say, 1 to 6 months or 1 to 3 months. And now you'll be able to run that content that they create as an ad in the search results on Amazon. Amazon will have some kind of like section of, influencer content in the search results that you'll be able to amplify that content with ads. So, I think those that are building up that content now in Creator Connections will end up having this library of content that you'll be able to leverage even further if Amazon implements this. And again, I think they're going to, I think the writing is on the wall, right? I mean, Amazon, I'm sure, is seeing what TikTok is doing and what TikTok has done for Amazon in the sense of, people that are successful on TikTok with their marketing will see a big lift on Amazon. And so, I think Amazon wants to empower brands to do more influencer marketing, drive more outside traffic into Amazon. And, I think this will be a great step where you'll be able to amplify that content that's being created. And, it also helps brands by, doing the hard work of, creating video content, which a lot of brands don't have the in-house team to do, and sometimes bandwidth and not their focus on, constantly creating new content. UGC obviously is a great way to do that. And then bringing that directly into Amazon and advertising and amplifying that, I think will be a great opportunity for brands. I want to show you a quick case study. This is one of our clients. They've done amazing on social platforms like TikTok with like billions of views. Billie Eilish recently organically was showing her beauty routine and showcased one of their products. And that has led to great success on Amazon, along with Amazon ads and other things, great success on Amazon. And we've done, Creator Connections for them on their product as well. One, the one thing I didn't mention, actually, it's here about Creator Connections, is you also have affiliates that are part of it as well. So you'll have like BuzzFeed, et cetera. And so sometimes these affiliates will, pick up the product and write an article about it and drive affiliate traffic in it too. So we ran a campaign and we had affiliates that picked up the article, the content, and we had articles in BuzzFeed, E-News, Pop Sugar, Huffington Post, Bustle, along with hundreds of posts. And that campaign resulted in 2,000 plus new to brand customers. So you can think about the revenue there, 2,000 plus new to brand customers at a 20% ACoS, right? Because it's a 20% commission. Now, not every product does that well. We see a range, we'll see a product that does 2,000-3,000 a month in sales. We'll see a product that does 50,000 a month in sales. So we see quite a range depending on the product and the influencers that pick it up. And, is your product more visually appealing for social media, right? And the price point and all these things that will influence how well a product does with influencers. But you definitely have great potential, and this is something that you should be putting into play if you're not. And again, that now we can go to their A+ content and put in like as seen on BuzzFeed and whatever, et cetera. Right now, that's something they can showcase on their website. It's like PR for the brand, besides even the sales that come through that. So it's a lot of great social proof that you can get through this. And, there are literally software tools you would have to pay for in order to create these, connections and these affiliates, many out there, right? That you may know of tools that you have to pay for to get this. And with Amazon Creator Connections, it's free and it's all being tracked and it's really easy. And again, there's some limitations. You can't scale it as much as you want with, outreach. But I think it's a great tool that's only going to expand again with like things like licensed content and hopefully outreach, et cetera. So that's my talk on Creator Connections. Now, there have been some things since they even put this presentation together. And since a lot of our focus at Incrementa is advertising, that I wanted to add one thing that is a focus for us on the advertising side of Amazon this year. That is something you should be paying attention to. A little bit of context. Amazon has something called the Amazon Marketing Cloud. And if you're not familiar with the Amazon Marketing Cloud, give you a brief overview. The Amazon Marketing Cloud is what Amazon calls is a clean data room. It's a data room that houses all of your customers and their data. Okay. And through that, you can create some unique audiences and do some unique tracking. Okay. So for example, something you can see now also with the Amazon Marketing Cloud, both in DSP and sponsored ads, is you can see the customer path to conversion. So Amazon is a last click or last view attribution. So if somebody goes, clicks on a sponsored product ad, a day later, they click on your sponsored brand ad and purchase, the attribution will go to sponsored brand ad, and the sponsored product ad would look like wasted spend because it doesn't have any sale attached to it. But in reality, that was part of their shopping journey, right? And that sponsored product was the first thing they saw, or DSP ad would be the first thing they saw. But it's not the last click or the last view sometimes with display ads. And so the Amazon Marketing Cloud shows you the path to conversion, shows you the ad types people interact with on their way to purchase, and allows you to create unique audiences. For example, if you have enough of an audience, you can target an audience of people who abandoned cart. You can target an audience of people who added to wish list. You can target audience of people who have bought from you in the past and have spent at least $100. You can create all these unique audiences. And up until now, this was only available through DSP, which a lot of brands do, a lot of brands don't do, is not necessarily as relevant to everyone. But what's happened now is Amazon has opened this up to sponsored products, sponsored brand, sponsored display. And that's a game changer, because what it now allows you to do is it allows you to say, I want to create this audience. I put it in my sponsored brand, so my sponsored product ad, let's say, and it's people who have added my product to cart and have not purchased. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to the keywords that I'm targeting. I'm going to tell Amazon, okay, I have a $1.50 bid for these keywords, but if it's somebody from this audience that already added my product to cart, but they didn't buy yet, that's searching, increase the bid by 10%, increase the bid by 50% for that specific audience with the Amazon Marketing Cloud. Or you can show display ads to that audience with sponsored display. And you can create these audiences and ask Amazon to increase the bid. So I think this is a big win-win for both Amazon and the seller. I think Amazon probably sat in a room. I can imagine the executives sitting in a room and saying, cost per click has plateaued. There's only so much people will pay in this particular niche. Once it gets too expensive, right? Like the market is dictating where cost per click is, and it's not going up as much as we want. We want to increase our revenue. How do we do that? Well, if we can give them better audiences that are going to convert at higher rates, people will be willing to pay more. And that's essentially what they have created with opening up the Amazon Marketing Cloud. Now, the good and the bad is that in order to activate Amazon Marketing Cloud, typically you would need to work with a partner, a software company like Jungle Scout, or an agency like us. You need to be able to create those campaigns so that you can see them in your advertising console. But this should be a big focus and testing for you this year, and it's just rolling out. We're now testing across our client base with different audiences that we're working, and we're starting with a 10% increase, right? We're starting slow and seeing how that bid makes a difference in terms of our conversion rate, and showing ads to a more relevant, at a higher bids to a more relevant audience instead of increasing bids across the board, et cetera. So this is something I really recommend testing, looking into in 2025. It's an area of focus for us and the brands that we're working with as a way to grow revenue and connect more. One cool thing, I think one of the coolest audiences that you can create with this is, Amazon is sort of caught up to the Facebook meta world, is they allow you to create lookalike audiences from who you create. So you can take and say, I want to take everyone that's purchased from me in the last 365 days. And let's say I'm a supplement brand and I have a $30 product. And I could say, take everyone who's purchased from me and spent $150 with me in the last year, and create a lookalike audience for that. Which other buyers on Amazon are very similar to this audience that I can now target with my ad, and you can get more new to brand customers based on how you are creating this lookalike audience from your own customers, which I think is one abandoned carts, all these things. One of the more exciting audiences is people who are not in your world yet, but they are lookalikes. Something, Meta has allowed you to do for a long time: upload your email list, create lookalike audience. Now you could do it with Amazon. And now, AMC over the last few years was talked about a lot, but, was only relevant if you're doing DSP. Now it doesn't matter if you're doing DSP or not. AMC is becoming, I think, more and more important. And again, I think if you're here watching this, you're here because you want to do the things that are going to get you an edge over the competitors. Creator connections, one of those things. AMC, I think, has even greater potential with scale on the advertising side, because advertising, just allows you to scale more. And it's one of those things I think you should be paying attention to on Amazon advertising for this year and starting right away. So thank you so much for listening. That's my presentation. You can find me, Liran Hirschkorn, through our website, incrementumdigital.com, or on LinkedIn or any social platforms. You can feel free to reach out if you have any questions. My email also is liran@incrementumdigital.com. And hopefully you enjoyed this presentation. We'd love to hear any feedback you have, your experiences. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I want to thank Jungle Scout for inviting me. I've had a long history and great relationship with Jungle Scout over the years and they consistently bring great content out to the seller community. So I greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching this presentation.
All right, that's a wrap on day 3 of Amazon Seller Week. Coming up tomorrow, we have 5 more amazing sessions that are inspired by real success stories. You'll learn how to avoid costly mistakes, new ways to scale your business, and strategies for driving growth on and off Amazon in 2025. And of course, don't forget, we have more daily grand prizes happening all week long, so make sure to tune in live tomorrow for another chance to win one of these amazing prizes. Thank you again for being here with us on day 3 of Amazon Seller Week, but now we'll see you tomorrow for day 4.